Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Pasterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome to a big Thursday edition, a happy Halloween edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Huss and Reem with you, coming off an unbelievable night last night at Boston Pizza Polo Park. A huge thanks to BP, the amazing staff that took care of our crew last night, our friends at Little Brown Jug for setting up an awesome watch party. And most importantly, thanks to everyone that came out. We packed that place and had an absolutely awesome time. And the Jets came through with a big win that left everybody going home happy. So an absolutely awesome night. There you see the entire crew right around the start of the game. Got some other funny pictures of people. We'll get to that when Remis joins me in there. There's a bunch of the crew. But yeah, no, it was overall just an absolute blast. Had a bunch of 1919s. Great to have our favorite beer on tap now at Boston Pizza Polo Park and some of the other BPs around town. And obviously, you know, you get in that BP lounge, the game's on all the screens, the sound's cranked, and the team explodes in the first period, and the first line explodes in the first period. Everyone was having a great time. So thank you again to everyone that came out. We got a great show. We're going to hear from Coach Scott Arneal, who got pretty hot in the second period last night when Detroit scored that quick goal in the power play after a very questionable call on Dylan Sandberg. We'll also hear from Mark Scheifele and Neil Pionk, who had a massive bounce-back performance. We can talk about the top line. Neil Pionk, he and Dylan Sandberg struggled mightily in that game Monday night against the Leafs. Pionk, 2 goals last night, much to the delight of our guy Les and Alex from the Peg, who were up at the front with the Neil Pionk player card, and they spun the wheel twice and won some great stuff. So anyways, big win. We'll get into all of that. Coming up, Scott Billeck is going to join us. We will also be talking to Brandon Rewucki. And then we're going to get into a little bit of football talk. I said all week, I have to get Jamie Nye on from Regina to get the Rider Nation perspective of what happened in Montreal on Saturday with the Bombers and that miracle win aided by Mother Nature. We're going to talk to Jamie a little later on and set up a very intriguing West Semi between the Lions and the Riders, with the winner coming here to the Peg to take on the Bombers on November 9th for a trip to the Grey Cup. And I think we'll have time. We had a great conversation with Dylan Anhorn of the Manitoba Moose. The Moose are home this weekend on Friday and Saturday with night games, 7 o'clock Friday, 6 o'clock on Saturday. You know, we had great conversations with a number of the players. Dylan Anhorn had a real great energy. You're going to love that. So we'll have that for you towards the end of the program as well. And, of course, hit the cool bet lines. But speaking of CFL, and again, we're going to talk Riders, Lions with Jamie Nye a little later on at one of our best CFL 110 episodes yesterday. That is up heading into the playoffs. Lots of talk about Randy Ambrosie's retirement and where the league goes from there. Aftermath of last weekend, the teams that are going into the offseason, where they go. Hammer was on fire. That is up right now at the Winnipeg Sports Talk YouTube channel. And for you podcast listeners, fire in CFL 110 wherever you get your favorite pods like Winnipeg Sports Talk, and hit the subscribe for some great CFL content every week. It is brought to you by Garage Living Winnipeg. Also want to thank all the sponsors that make Winnipeg Sports Talk happen each and every day. The great people at Princess Auto, Cool Bet Canada, the Winnipeg Jets, Fans First, Rollies Transfer, Consolidated Supply, Canadian Club, Manitoba Battery, Wallace & Wallace, of course, Royal Sports, and our great host last night, Boston Pizza, and our longtime local beer partner, our friends at Little Brown Jug. And, of course, you want to look good, you go to F Apparel, and our friends at Wallace & Wallace as well, great supporters of WST. Let's get the show on the road. Welcome, everybody in chat. And welcome you, Michael Remis. What a blast last night. Great to have Connor and Liz with us, the whole WST team there. And, man, the turnout was amazing for our first watch party of the year.
Yeah, never done it, and you never know who's going to come or not. And the place was packed. You couldn't really get a table. Great to see so many regular listeners, people we've seen over the years at other events and the WST ticket pack. So that was super cool. And Boston Pizza, what a great place to watch a game, Huss. They had the sound on, very loud, multiple TVs, so you could watch from pretty much wherever you were sitting.
Didn't matter where you were sitting. You were set up.
Some places they don't have that, and I loved the pick a player thing. When you mentioned it on the show, I didn't really know what that was, but when we were there before the game, you go and to the table there and you grab a card of a player. So our table got Cole Perfetti, and if he scored, we would have got to spin the wheel to win some prizes. So the guy who had Colin Miller should get some lottery tickets. He got a nice. He got to spin the wheel and
what
got
about
a
Les and Alex that had Pionk
and
went twice?
Pionk got twice. I mean, lucky for them. I mean, I know Kyle Connor and Velarde; those are going to be first off the board. But yeah, if you got Pionk, you're rewarded. So that was a great game for a watch party. They scored 6 goals, a lot of prizes handed out. Had a great time, and we stuck around for the World Series after. So what a lovely evening there.
While we're giving credit, and I mean, shout out to Jordan and Carrie and the great servers. They took care of everyone, and it was a busy night. They were running hard. And as great as the service was, you were so impressed with the transition of the TVs from the Jets game on every TV to a very quick changeover to the World Series, as well as multiple hockey games on other tubes.
Yeah, you go to a lot of restaurants or a lot of places that call themselves sports bars, and sometimes they don't know how to work the TV, what games are on that night, or how to optimally place the channels. I've never been so impressed with the Winnipeg establishment. After the Jets game ended, they had the World Series on, the biggest TVs. They had the Avs game on. They lost to the Lightning. We watched Kings Vegas. That was on another TV as well. And there was some basketball on too. So A+ job, whoever was controlling the TVs. Usually I'm the guy, I go to a place, Huss, and I have to tell them what games to put on, what channel it is. I was able to sit back.
Your wife loves that too, I know.
I'm always that guy. It's just, I've accepted it. And look, you go to places and sometimes they don't know. They're busy working. They don't have a designated person. That's been my dream job, Huss. To be someone at like Boston Pizza.
The TV guy.
Where they have like 6 different, however many channels they can have on at once to DJ the TV channels. But the guy, whoever was doing it last night, well done. Earned their paycheck. That was awesome.
Well, they listen, it was everything was awesome. And Tanner and the Little Brown Jug crew that was out with us was awesome to have them there and supporting some great prizes from Little Brown Jug that we gave away. We did that fun. I enjoyed putting together and doing the over-under contest that we did in the first and second intermission.
It's fun.
People like that, just kind of fun over-unders on a bunch of interesting Jet stats. But I'm just looking at the chat right now, and I mean, so many of the folks that were with us yesterday are here right now. Shout out to Alex from the Peg. Said, excellent showing at the watch party yesterday. Had a great time meeting some of you. It was great to meet you as well. We got to meet Michael, and we missed you, Matt Hyman. You got to be there next time for it. Dallas, of course, was there. Had a nice win as well. I mean, Phyllis and Bridget, Isha boy Bruce, and then the table of WST legends there. I mean, T-Will, waiters, Spency in a pizza costume, Dan Jets fan. Who else was there at that table? Anyways, it was a big crew. Yeah, there you go. The entire, what a shot of some of the most hilarious individuals that join us in the chat each and every day. So we'll definitely do that again at some point. And thanks again for everyone coming out. And the best part about it, Remo, is that everyone was in a pretty damn good mood throughout the night as the Jets did bounce back and showed. Shout out Rick Bonus, who was on TNT last night, sitting beside Biz doing his thing. A great amount of pushback after a disappointing loss to the Leafs. And there was no slow start last night like they had on Monday night at home. They barnstormed the Detroit Red Wings and Little Caesars Arena in the first period, led by Kyle Connor in the homecoming, who hit 500 points for his career. We'll get to that. And really never looked back, despite An iffy call that Scott Arniel was absolutely livid about that turned into a power play goal 5 seconds into the operation that sort of got Detroit back in the game. But, man, the Jets deserved to win that game. They got a huge break right off the top of the third period with Nino Niederreiter centering a puck that was kicked in by former Winnipeg Jet Ben Sherratt. And after that, it was pretty much done. A couple more goals of insurance. Shut it down for Connor Hellebuyck in net. Cashed the Winnipeg Sports Talk parlay, which made last night even better. And move on to Columbus at 9-1 with the best record in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, what a bounce back. What a great performance by the Jets on the road in Detroit. We talked yesterday, homecoming game, Kyle Connor, 1 point away from 500. Got that and more. Connor Hellebuyck, very solid in net. Power play went 1 for 2. Penalty kill, you would like to see maybe a better performance, but hey, you can't stop them all. They went 1 for 3 successful. The Detroit scored 2 power play goals, but in the third period when you thought, is Detroit coming back and going to make this a game, and it's 3-2, Nino Niederreiter, puts one in 10 seconds in, one of the fastest goals by the Jets ever to start a period, and got going, and Neil Pionk scored the fifth one. The second of the game. Colin Miller, added the extra. So it was a great performance, great bounce back. 5-on-5 play. There's some concerns about this Vilardi, Connor, Scheifele line. Their play at 5-on-5. Well, it'll help their goal differential at 5-on-5 when they score 3 on the ice for 3 yesterday. So well done by the Jets. Good bounce back. Silenced a lot of the doubters after the Leafs beat them. But it's the schedule coming up, Huss. It's going to be tough. First 10 games, 9-1. But, they're just ramping
I'm not sure
up.
they're going to be 9-1 in the next 10-game segment, but to bank 18 points in your first 10 games and have the best first 10 in the National Hockey League, listen, that you can just, move on, be happy with where you stand and get ready for some increased competition over the next little while. And don't sleep on the Blue Jackets. The Blue Jackets had a shutout win last night against the New York Islanders. They're, I think, at 5-3-1, 6-3-1 right now. So, the Jets, who have not played well in Columbus in recent years, I think we all have a few memories of very iffy games there. So listen, they got one more chance to get another win on the road, and then they come back and start this monster homestand, beginning with the Tampa Bay Lightning, who ran up all over the Avalanche in a really rough game yesterday. Coming in on Sunday before Utah, Colorado, and Dallas, 3 big Central Division opponents come to Canada Life Center next week. So, it was great. And starting off, listen, Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, and Gabe Vilardi, all amazing players. Kyle Connor is, I know SK was just mentioning, he is into superstar status right now. 1 goal off of the league lead. Nico Hischier is there at 10 games, but he's played 13 games. Kyle Connor with 9 and 10. And also right there, I believe, 5th in league scoring. He's had such a phenomenal start to the season. But listen, there was a lot of talk about, could that line, help the Jets win long term if they weren't getting it done on the positive end of the ledger at 5-on-5, considering the amount of ice time they play. And listen, I think these guys have heard it. I know the coaching staff has as well. And, I think the coaching staff is working with these guys to, produce better results. And they certainly did last night. Now, and we will see line changes over the course of the year. But right now, considering the way the team's playing, the record, the wins that have come along, they got the opportunity to come back after a disappointing night against Toronto and show that they should stay together. And they made a pretty darn good case last night for that. Now, there's still a lot of work to be done moving into Columbus in this homestand next week. And, this conversation, I'm sure, will change game after game after game. But it was a big homecoming night for Kyle Connor and Connor Hellebuyck. And Connor in particular, I think, wanted to make sure that, a lot of the noise around their line was put behind them at least for one night. And they did a hell of a job on that right out of the gate in the first period.
Oh, yeah, it was just a great road game, great bounce-back game all around. Look, you're allowed to have one bad game in your first 10, Hustler. There's going to be games you don't like throughout the season. It was just very unfortunate and magnified that it was against Toronto. It was on prime Monday Night Hockey. So they moved on, played great against Detroit. We'll see how it goes tomorrow against a Columbus team that's been very surprising and very good this year. So, what more can you say about last night's game? Maybe they could have had a couple more. Kyle Connor, shooting it wide.
Second period.
Yeah.
It was 3-2 after the second. The Jets could have easily scored another 2 or 3 there. Alex Lyon made some big saves. There was a couple ones the Jets would normally cash in. But I think that's what made the way they played in the third period so impressive. Detroit got back in the game. They probably didn't like how they did. Certainly Scott Arniel, as we mentioned, hated that first penalty they called the interference on Dylan Sandberg, which was about as chintzy as a call as you'll see. And then 5 seconds later, it's in your net, and the team is back in it. And he didn't like it, but the team showed that they were up to the challenge in the third period. And as I said, back to the top line for a minute. And I know Connor put out a very interesting stat of lines in the league that it had. I believe it was 100 minutes together. And it was all top lines in the league. There was only 7 of them. The Scheifele, Connor, Velarde line had a really ugly 5-on-5 goal differential number. They changed that in a big way last night. So I wouldn't expect any line changes going into Columbus right now. But bottom line is it's about winning and stacking points right now. And the Jets did exactly that. Let's hear from the coach, Scott Arniel. He spoke after the game and, talked about the team's response for the first time this season after losing a game.
Obviously, getting out on the road and our start in the first obviously was set the tone. I just thought it was everybody again, like you'd asked this morning. We had to be back to everybody playing their A game, and I thought we did tonight. Everybody, big contributions from everybody, went after them and, made them play in their end of the rink to kind of hopefully take the crowd out a little bit, and we did that.
To get 3 5-on-5 goals from your top line in the first period, that sends a pretty good statement right there.
It does, and they knew they had the challenge tonight that Larkin was going to be the line against them, and when we knew that Vladdy's line was going to see Confer's line, and we talked about there's your challenge, and they did a great job not giving them much, and then obviously went out and responded by scoring some goals. So everybody was put all of us put on a little kind of let's see how we respond after the last game, and it was a great response.
Well, listen, there was a lot of questions about the response going into last night's game. And listen, the noise may be around the top line of an 8-1 team, but, it was the second pairing, I think, that really looked to bounce back. It was a horrible night on the box score with the -5 and a -4 for Sandberg and Pionk. Some giveaways that turned into goals. And, it had been very different than the solid play that they delivered through the first 8 games of the season. They bounced back in a big way. And, of course, Neil Pionk scored 2 goals last night. Arnie was asked about Pionk's game after having a real rough one on Monday night.
Yeah, the biggest thing is, as I mentioned, there's 73 games. You can't dwell on the past. You got to get going forward here. We'll enjoy this one for a little bit, move on to Columbus, and that's what it's about. That's what you have to do, whether it's having a bad shift and being better the next shift, or having a bad game and being better the next game, and that's obviously what Pete did. Actually, a lot of guys did that.
Well, the month of October is finished. The Jets had 10 games. Shout out to Rick Ralph, 10-game segment, and finished up at 9-1 with the best record in the National Hockey League. Here is Coach Arniel on that first 10-game segment and the 9-1 record.
We're appreciative of what we're doing and what we've done, but there's so much hockey ahead of us that everybody in that room knows that it's not going to be easy. Just look at our division. Our division alone is going to be a mountain to climb here, so you got to bank the points when you can. We want to make sure that we have a style of play that we're trying to build. Hockey's going to get tougher and tougher every month. Next month coming for us, month of November, we got an 11-day road trip coming. We got to make sure that we continue to play like we did today.
We went into the game expecting a big game from Kyle Connor and a bit of a homecoming, and just to continue the tear that he's been on, and that happened in a big way. But it was actually the 500th point on an assist, an absolutely beautiful setup from Connor to Gabriel Velarde, and then Velarde returned the favor later on in the first period on the other goal that was between the two of them on that 3-0 run in the first period for that line. Arnie just talked a little bit about Gabriel Vilardi and Kyle Connor setting each other up on those beautiful first period goals.
Yeah, and there was some good outside speed, both driving wide, driving to the net, not cutting off and maybe looking for an easier play inside. I love the fact that they went to the back post, and both of them have such great hands to make plays. The other thing, too, is that Gabe, I'm glad to see, obviously he was stressing a little bit, trying to get himself going, and now he seems to be up and running, and that line looks fast. They look like they're cohesive, they're doing things together, and when you have that chemistry with that, they're going to create the offense, or they're a line we look to every night to score some goals.
Now, listen, the Jets have a superstar on their team. He wears number 37. He's got 2 Vezina trophies. But Kyle Connor on this start is kind of moving in from star to true superstar status right now. And there was a big milestone last night, hitting 500 points. And doing it in just 541 games. Now 502 on his career. Arnie's seen a lot of Kyle Connor and talked about KC getting 500 last night in Detroit.
500 points, that's unbelievable in the sense of it just shows the type of player he is, how hard he works. Again, I just love the fact there was a couple times in the third period we were up 3 goals, whatever it was, and he's still pouring back on the back check. He's still trying to pop sticks, and he's a professional through and through. He's an elite player in this league, and we like to keep him our little hidden secret, but I don't think that's going to happen anymore. I think people all know that he's got 500 and he can score, and he's on he's off to a great start, to start this year.
One more from Arnie, this sort of reminds me of Bones, in the last couple of years, talking about needing more from his blue line. The Jets scored 6 last night. 3 of them were from the blue line. We talked about the 2 from Neil Pionk. Colin Miller also brought the boom last night. Here's Arnie from getting 3 from the guys on the back end.
Yeah, I mean, if don't quote me on it, but I think if you go back and look into our 2 prior years, our total points is probably we're in the top 5. So it is something that we've been stressing, that offense has to come from, these 3 and 4 man rushes, and those guys being a part of it. It isn't just standing back and throwing the puck back in the corner. I just like the way tonight we did a great job of getting off the line and getting pucks down to the net front, and whether that was P diving down and scoring that way, or it was just Millsy getting his heavy shot through there. That's what it's about. We work hard to get our forwards to the net front. We need our D to get the puck down there.
All right, so there's Scott Arniel. We didn't even get the chance to talk to him about a borderline freakout on the bench after Detroit's first goal. But hey, calmer. It was much calmer after getting that cushion in the third period and getting the win. But we were talking about it at the watch party last night. I've already seen the comments in chat. You had to love the fire from Scott Arniel, and I think people are learning a little bit more about the intensity that he brings to the game every night on the bench, and certainly has enjoyed his first 10 as the head coach of the Winnipeg Jets, winning 9 of them. Neil Pionk spoke about the bounce-back performance for the team and personally after what happened Monday night against the Leafs.
Yeah, the sun came up, thankfully. It was just a team thing. Obviously, we didn't play very well personally either, so it's all part of being a pro. I talked to Sammy, and we both agreed we just got to turn the page and get on to the next game.
How do you explain a game like that, just where seemingly kind of everything that could have gone wrong did, and you get maybe a few weeks' worth of bad luck and bad mojo out of the system?
I'll quote Bones, shit happens. No, it was a combination of them playing really well and us playing very poorly. So that just happens. Over a course of 82 games, that's going to happen. And like I said, you got to respond. I think that's the biggest thing.
And respond, he and the team did. Great game for Pionk last night with 2 goals in a big bounce-back performance after Monday. Mark Scheifele was right in the middle of Kyle Connor and Gabriel Vilardi. That line had a huge first period, although Scheifele only got the 1 assist, and it actually was on Pionk's goal, not Vilardi or not Kyle Connor's. But Mark spat to the microphone afterwards with a big smile on his face after a big win for his club to go 9-1.
Yeah, we played well. Right from the get-go, we played our game. Obviously, they made it a little closer with their power play goals, but we played a great game tonight.
Scott Arniel said before the game he liked what all the lines had done, the larger body of work, and obviously goes back to those lines. For your line to come out and get 3 5-on-5 goals in the first period, just what's your take on that?
Yeah, we're a good line. There's games that go our way that don't go our way, but we were 8-0 before last game, so that's something. And obviously, we all played a great game. Casey and Gabe were absolutely fantastic tonight, and it showed. And it was fun to play with those guys tonight.
You can see the chemistry between all three of you, but Kyle to Gabe on that first goal, and then Gabe kind of pays the favor a little later on. Just for Kyle to get his 500th point on that was a pretty quality assist, right? Oh, amazing.
He's a fantastic player. He's, I'm very, very lucky to play with him. He's unbelievable. He brings it night in and night out, and tonight he was absolutely phenomenal, and could have had a lot more. So, like I said, it was fun to play with those guys tonight, and just got to keep going.
Here's one more from Mark Scheifele, and then we'll get to Scotty Billeck. Kyle Connor is on fuego right now, 5th in scoring, 1 off the NHL lead for goals right now. Here's his line mate, Mark Scheifele, on the hot start at number 81.
He's amazing. Like I said before, I'm so honored and lucky to play with him. I've been with him for a long time, and I still remember his first goal. He got called up and played online with me in wheels, and he's a guy that gets better and better every year. He works so hard. He does everything, and like I said, he's awesome. He's so fun to play with. Does everything, and I'm very, very lucky to play with him.
Right, vibes high, heading to Columbus for the Winnipeg Jets at 9-1 after the big win last night in Detroit. We'll break it down with Scott Billeck coming up in just a second. As I mentioned, we'll talk Riders, Lions, and CFL later on. But a great new episode of CFL 110 is up on the YouTube page. Check it out if you haven't. Leave a comment. Of course, CFL 110 is brought to you by our friends at Garage Living Winnipeg. And even though November is upon us, there's no slowing down for the guys at Garage Living. It seems there's lots of messy garages that need help in and around Winnipeg. It's a big problem for some people. I was talking with Pat the other day. He was in a 5-year-old home in a new neighborhood, and the owners have never parked in their garage because it's so full of stuff. Garage Living Winnipeg can help fix those problems and give you an organized, beautiful garage with a place for everything. It's your chance to clear the clutter, organize and beautify your garage with slat wall, polyaspartic floor coating, and made in Canada premium metal cabinetry. Check out their website and all their amazing work at garageliving.com, and give Pat Kanuga a call, 204-999-1234, to book a free in-garage consultation or make an appointment to meet him in their showroom at 981 Main Street. Garage Living Winnipeg, garages made for living. A huge shout out to our friends at Rolly's Transfer, the most trusted name in moving for over 60 years, family owned here in the city. And with such an extensive logistics business, our friends at Rolly's are around the city and province on a daily basis, which means flexible routes, flexible timing, and a great price for your move. And you'll get the white glove treatment that only Rolly's provides. Check out their website at rollys.com. In the top right corner, you'll see you can request an estimate. Click on that and make sure first you put in the promo code WST for a special discount for WST listeners on moving services and moving supplies. Let them know when and where you're moving and what you need to move, and the friendly staff at Rolly's will get back to you ASAP with the cost to get you moving with that Rolly's white glove treatment to your next destination. For your next move, make it Rolly's. Find out more online and request a quote today at rollys.com. And a happy Halloween to our friends at Consolidated Supply. What a run it's been for them, and a huge summer now as we head into the new season. Of course, Consolidated Supply, the experts in the golf industry for irrigation systems and services, but can help you, your residents, or your business as well. But there's so much more. Artificial turf, golf carts is the exclusive club car dealer in Manitoba, both new and used, and other great options for your home like hot tubs and really cool outdoor kitchens. And of course, they're also the leaders in small engine parts and repair. Pop by and see them at their showroom, open to the public, 1395 Niagara Road East. And you can also check out everything they've got going on online, Consolidated Supply at cte.ca. And hey, November is here. Can you believe that? Tomorrow. Are you ready for winter? Hopefully it won't be here too soon, but you know it's coming. Make sure your batteries are good to go. And while Donnie and the gang have gotten us through the fun summer with the boats and the camping and all that, now it's time to make sure your car and your truck battery is good to go for the upcoming year. You can always pop into Manitoba Battery on Logan Avenue or Dover Court to get tested. But you can also just simply give them a call or order online at manitobabattery.com. You'll get the best prices in town, period, beating the pants off the big box stores. You'll shop local, and they'll deliver it to you for free anywhere inside the perimeter with any purchase over $60. It's just that easy. For all your battery needs, Manitoba Battery, 2 locations now in the city, and you can order online at manitobabattery.com. All right, let's get Billeck in here and keep this show rolling. Scotty, what's going on? Happy Halloween.
It's going, man. It's the World Series ended last night. It's good to see the Yankees lose, of course. Always good. I thought that was sort of over. That whole thing was over. Ice Cube just demolished the Yankees after.
Yeah, as a Red Sox
2.
guy, how do you feel about Mookie Betts getting another ring there in LA?
Yeah, good for him. Yeah, it's unfortunate the Red Sox couldn't keep Mookie back then, but I mean, they just weren't in a position to be winning anytime soon. So I'm happy for Mookie. It's good to, I think it's good for the league that Shohei wins a title too, right? I mean, that's a big thing for the league, and then obviously Freddie. I mean, he's this era's Larry Walker,
my God,
right? But he's this era's Larry Walker. I was thinking about this the other day, right? I mean, we talk about Canadian players and guys. Larry never won a World Series. Freddie's out there getting her done. So, yeah, it was good. But I can't get it out of my head. Alex Verdugo, bob his head to Ice Cube singing "Bow Down." The old West Side Connection, pulling out what an incredible. It's CD from I believe it's like '96 or whatever. But anyway, what an album! And,
it was. Listen, if you're a hip hop guy,
Yeah.
the series was amazing. I mean, we got Ice Cube in LA, and then Fat Joe doing the thing when it came to the Bronx.
They should have just played Fat Joe and said that guy couldn't rap anymore. Plus, he's not fat anymore either, so it's hard to call him Fat Joe now,
it's
right?
sort of like kind of slim down Joe. Look, the beard was on point.
Ozempic. Just brilliant, right?
Let's get to the main event for all of us. And again, we had a great time at Boston Pizza with the big crew last night. Everyone left happy. And listen, they were in good spirits pretty much the entire night because the Jets went in and took control of that hockey game right off the bat. And it was, I mean, I know there's a lot of noise around the top line. They're getting a lot of points, but people are talking about 5-on-5. There was no question about who was dominating that game at 5-on-5 right out of the gate last night, and it was led by Kyle Connor, Gabriel Velarde, and Mark Scheifele.
Yeah, I mean, just an incredible response game from the Jets, right? I mean, I think that's what stood out to me more than anything was how well that team responded to the one-loss adversity, right? And playing that the way that they did against Toronto. So I think that was probably more than anything the thing that stood out to me. And then you had the extra layers, the Kyle Connor. I mean, obviously the way that the top line just started that game, scoring, just over 2 minutes into it, and then setting up another goal 3 or 4 minutes into the game too with Neil Pionk. The way that Neil Pionk responded to his tough game, allowing 5, being on the ice for 5 against Toronto, and then the way that he came back and really kind of answered the bell, right? Because that was what a lot of it was. There was a lot of answering the bell, answering the challenge set forth. But to me, it was leadership, right? The leadership came out. You didn't see the fourth line come out or the third pairing. I mean, obviously, Colin Miller had a goal, but it was the leaders that stepped up, from Adam Lowry's line, really setting the tone early on in the game, and then everybody following after that, right? It wasn't just a one and done with Adam Lowry's line like it might have been against Toronto. So they played really well. They got the win. They got back to winning ways, and they showed that this is a team that that isn't happy with, I look at it like this. This is a team that could have easily, and I think in years gone by, this team would have been like, we're 9-1, we're happy, right? Or we're 8-1, we're happy. Now this team was unhappy that they weren't 9-0 and now 10-0, and they came out and took that game away from Detroit early. And so that's the difference to me. And I wrote this last night. I mean, I think if you've been in that room as much as some of us have over the last several years, you've seen a team that had such a fractured culture. And now we're in 2024, the 2024-25 season. And I think you really see a team that's really understood, that really took it to heart, losing last year in the playoffs against Colorado, and didn't like it, right? It wasn't like, oh, hey, we got to the playoffs, whatever. I mean, Colorado's a good team, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, they didn't show up in that series. And I think that bothered a lot of players, and that's been something that they've channeled, though, in the right way. And I think we're seeing that early in this season in the way that they've played. I mean, this is a team, and they talked about it on the broadcast last night. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I think it's a great point. I mean, and I know there's some people and, naysayers to be like, well, whatever. I mean, talk to me in the playoffs. Listen, the pro hockey doesn't work that way. You got to get there first, and, getting off to a good start, but playing with the purpose. And let's face it, there are so many examples of teams. The Tampa Bay Lightning we're going to see on Saturday is a perfect one. They were this great team that had a, top team in the league and went out and lost to the Columbus Blue Jackets in the first round. Absolutely embarrassed.
Yep.
What happened? They came back. They go to the next couple. And I guarantee you talk to those players, and that experience, the bitter pill of not being your best when you have to be and losing when you're a favorite. And that's as a big favorite. It's not like the Jets went and everyone thought they were going to walk all over Colorado, but they just weren't up to the challenge. And it was a long summer for everyone. It changed a lot of the narrative around. I think people forgot about what this team was capable of because of a terrible run of 4 games in the spring. Yep. And it is how you react to it. And you talked about leadership. And I think still a lot of Rick Bowness's identity is within this team, of which most of them played for Bones. I think Scott Arniel's done a really good job of putting his stamp on this and focusing on what they have to focus, but also not ignoring what happened. I mean, accepting it and trying to make them better. And then, I mean, listen, Adam Lowry's right at the top of that list, but going back to last night, Kyle Connor has really turned into that guy. And, we've talked about some of the plays that they've made, with his, play defensively, back checking, getting turnovers. And as far as what he's doing best at, and that's scoring goals and setting up. I mean, he is playing the best hockey of his career, Scott. He is right near the top of the NHL scoring leaders in both goals and points. And like right now, if he can keep playing along this and, that line that he's on, do a little bit more at 5-on-5, already a power play dynamo and just feeling it right now. This is a team that, will be looking forward to a huge test next week when they can go up against the likes of Colorado and Dallas and Tampa after being full marks for earning 9 wins in their first 10 games.
Yeah. I think some people are still talking about Kyle Connor as this sort of underrated player in 2024. I was writing that story, maybe 3 or 4 years ago when he was. I don't think he is anymore an underrated player, maybe underappreciated, but I don't know if underrated would be it. But I think the thing with Kyle Connor is that what's underrated now about Kyle Connor is the way that he plays defense, right? The way that he tracks pucks going backwards. The energy that he puts into that part of the game that maybe he didn't 3 or 4 years ago. I think that's what's sort of setting Kyle Connor apart now. I mean, you look at last year, I mean, obviously the knee injury, I think that, it takes some time. It takes some time to work back from that. It's not just, hey, I'm back after 6 weeks, I'm ready to go again. I think that's one of the things that we saw with Connor last year. But I still think the way that Kyle Connor started to play last year, the defensive side of the game, like that's where Rick Bowness's fingerprints are on right now. The way that Kyle Connor's playing now started a couple years ago when Rick Bowness got here and started to get these forwards to start playing and thinking about the defensive side of hockey. thing with Kyle Connor is he's doing it both right now, and that's what ideally that's what you would want to see, right? I mean, this is the sort of thing with Josh Morrissey, great defensive player, but never really unlocked his sort of offensive capabilities until Rick Bowness got here, and now they got Josh Morrissey doing both, right? Kyle Connor's in that same vein. He's playing more defensively now, but he's not losing. He's not giving up anything
It's
offensively.
helping the offense. Arneal talked about this earlier this week. And I mean, there's been a few cases where we can look at goals that have been scored where the other team's got the puck and is going the other way. And KFC goes in, steals the puck, bang, bang, and next thing you know, it's in the net. And I mean, it's pretty logical. Get the puck back, have the puck. You're that talented. Good things are going to happen, and it certainly is. Speaking of bouncing back, I mean, we have to talk about the Pionk-Samberg pairing. And Pionk has had just an awesome start to the season. I know there was a lot of detractors. He shut a lot of people up early on, and then you have one terrible game on Monday night, and a lot of it comes back. And it was funny listening to him speak after the game, and he did quote his old pal Bones in kind of a funny retort. But man, I mean, you couldn't have wanted a better game at, I think, a more important time for that pairing to just come right back and play and get the results that they did, considering the start. And to be honest, looking at this roster, how much heavy lifting is going to be on Samberg and Pionk moving forward as the stakes rise and the competition increases?
Yeah, I think it's important that's an important thing that you said right off the bat to remember is that Neil Pionk's had a really good start to the year. A couple of things. He's not injured, and he's not playing hurt. And that's been the case for the last couple of years. Neil Pionk won't say it. He never will, but I will. And he's been injured the last couple of years and playing hurt and playing through it. And he's the type of guy that Blake Wheeler would always talk about this. If he's in the lineup, he's not hurt, right? He's not injured. Neil Pionk subscribes to that same sort of mentality, that philosophy. But at the same time, I think we could see it in Neil's game over the last couple of years. I mean, last year was a prime example. He had a tough time turning right? I mean, it was very evident that something was off with him. This year, that's not the case. He's healthy again. He's going. And then so you look at that Toronto game, but the thing that made it stand out so much was that it was so poor defensively. Right, this wasn't the norm for Neil Pionk this season. He had been playing really well. Him and Samberg had been playing well. Dylan Samberg had taken a step up, right? But he had a tough game. They both did, but the whole team did, right? I mean, it's probably part of that was, I mean, it was bad play. Part of it's just bad luck because I think it didn't matter who was on the ice for some of those goals. They were going in, right? And that's just kind of the way that the game turned out. But I think it's important to realize that Neil Pionk has played really well, and this is the standard for him when he's not injured. And I think it's going to create a bit of an interesting sort of predicament for the Jets if they want to re-sign him, right? Because he's had a couple of years where it hasn't just really been there. And now he's healthy and playing well in second in defensive scoring this year. And you're like, okay, what do you do now, right? Do you reassign a guy who's wanted to play here? What does this team want to do with defense? With this defense, it's not big enough yet, right? I mean, if you look at the trends over the last several seasons of teams that have won the Stanley Cup, you want bigger defensemen. But Neil Pionk's the type of guy that you want on your back end because he'll play big and he'll score at the same time, right? And so, yeah, it's to me, I just look forward and I'm like, okay, this is going to be interesting because I don't know what the Jets plan on doing with Neil Pionk, because I think over the summer we would have looked at his contract and said, okay, that's one that this team should get rid of. And if they could try and make room for something else, maybe, you trade a guy like that because you need that cap space. Now you're like, okay, if he's going to play like this and he's not injured, now what do you do, right? And so that's a predicament. That's the first thing I think of, right? Because Neil Pionk is having a hell of a contract year, and one bad game isn't really going to, and he erased it. He erased that bad game literally 4 minutes into the period, right? And that was the case for the whole team, in my opinion. Like the whole team erased that bad game immediately, but. Yeah, I've liked it. I've liked how Dylan Samberg's played. Dylan Samberg came out, played. That penalty against him iffy at best. Iffy at best, we'll just say that. And I like the way that he's played, and so that's the other thing. Like if Dylan Sandberg is going to start playing, he's got the shot blocking, he's got obviously the penalty killing. He's very much a stay-at-home guy, right? That's what we know. There's been a few errors in a couple of games here, a little, whatever. But I think Dylan Sandberg is by and large taken this top 4 opportunity and kind of run with it. So yeah, I mean, again, it's hard to critique a team like this, right? I mean, after the Toronto game, there were things to critique. But right now, I mean, after that response, you're like, okay, this team is back to being this sort of unbeaten style team, a team that is beating a lot of teams in different ways and playing really well doing it. It's hard to critique a lot of these guys, and they're playing well. And, at this point, to my message to fans, and it was earlier before, sort of enjoy it, right? Enjoy the way that this team is playing. They can go like 500 now. I know. I think it was said last night a couple times on the broadcast. This team could go basically 500, just a little bit better than 500 right now, and they're probably a playoff team. But right now, they're playing more like a team that's going to make a push, and there's still time. Like there's time to improve this team. There's time to see, and you could see. And I know Elliott, I think, wrote it last night. Teams are starting to look and now to start to bolster already. And we're 10 games in the season for some of these teams, like basically a tenth of the way through the year. And teams are starting to think. So this is the thing. This is giving the Jets an opportunity to kind of think bigger picture now, because I think what they're going to be, in 3 or 4 months' time, and maybe you can start addressing some of the things that you want. If you want bigger size, more physical, second line center, whatever we want to talk about, what this team's needs are. 10 games in the season. I think we're going to wait another 10 or 20 to figure that out. But yeah, this team's in a good position right now, and I don't think that should be sort of taken for granted either. I think there's a good chance to try and figure out now with this team's identity. I think we know what it is already, how this team is going to play. I think this team can start trying to look and see, maybe there is some players out there that they have sort of on their radar and kind of want to look to,
and listen,
kind of strengthen what they have already.
The start the team that has had is going to give Kevin Cheveldayoff, I think, even more of an impetus to focus on what they want to add and when they want to add it. I mean, they're certainly not in any sort of a desperate situation right now. But, your team sort of tells you where you're at. And the answer that the Winnipeg Jets have given management is that, we're a damn good hockey team right now. And, we're looking forward to this, and we want to be as good as we can be. And it does move to that. I mean, just quickly on Pionk, 10 games, 3 goals now, 9 assists for 12 points. He's third in scoring. The Jets have 2 point-per-game defensemen, with Pionk with 12 and 10 and Josh Morrissey with 11 and 10. And other great starts. I mean, Niederreiter and Perfetti with 9 points in 10 games. Appleton, Velarde, Adam Lowry, all with 8 points in 10 games. Everyone's had a piece of it right now. And last night, as we saw, the blue line getting into it. And in all of this, we haven't even mentioned Connor Hellebuck, who has had as good of a start as he's had right now and kind of quietly went about his business last night. Got victimized on a couple deflections on, some power play goals. But other than that was the rock that this team has made. But to the Jets' credit, they, I think, did exactly what they wanted to do for Hellebuck in his homecoming, and taking care of business in their own end, limiting those high danger chances. And outside of, an off night for the PK, that was about as good as it gets so far. Hey, just quickly before we go, big chance tomorrow in Columbus. I mean, you don't want to look ahead to this big 4-game homestand and kind of, not take advantage of an opportunity. But at the same time, Columbus is playing their asses off right now. They seem to be, taking the tragedy that led them into the season and guide them. And listen, I mean, they shut out the Islanders last night. They're 5-3-1. This is a place where the Jets in previous seasons have sort of laid some eggs. I'm really interested to see how things go tomorrow night, Scott, because this is a big opportunity to get to 10-1 if they can win that game, and then come back and see how you measure up against the Tampas and the Colorados and the Dallases. But you wouldn't want to leave points on the table because as good as Columbus has been, the Winnipeg Jets are going into that game feeling that they can and should win that game.
Indeed, yeah, really, yeah, exactly, right. And I think the Jets have done well this year to not play down to sort of some of their competition. I know people look at that Chicago game, but Chicago's probably a better team than they're a feisty team, right? And those are hard teams to beat because they're a little bit unpredictable. But you look at the way that this team, dispatched the Sharks or dispatched the Penguins or whatever like that. I mean, this team has played well. But again, this goes back. I think there's an understanding of this team of how they need to play, and they play it really well. And the only team that's sort of exploited them so far is the Toronto Maple Leafs, who have a pretty good team and just haven't really kind of, put it all together yet, the Leafs. But we know that Leafs team is a good team. So I don't think this team is overlooking it. I think, again, just another chance to get another couple points under their belt. It started setting up. This team has a pretty good schedule coming up in terms of competition. Not an easy schedule. I think this is a good chance for the Jets coming up here in early November to really kind of figure out where they stand. Actually, they're going to play some top teams over the next little bit here, and I think that's where this team sort of really starts to kind of fine tune its game, cut its teeth, figure out where it is, and probably figure out what it needs to improve on too in that time. But you're seeing a team right now that's playing pretty well 5-on-5. I mean, for the most part, but has really good improvement in its special teams, and obviously, Connor Hellebuyck's well on his way right now to winning a third Vezina. I mean, it's early in the season. We don't talk about that yet.
We might be talking about a Rocket Richard for Kyle Connor as well.
Well, geez, there could be a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
There could be that. It could be, if this team wins, again, we're getting way ahead of ourselves, but and we've been in this situation before where early in the season you're talking about Norris, Vezina, Rocket Richard, potentially Jack Adams, right? I think that can't be understated at this point either.
When you're at the top of the standings and your players,
that's where you usually have it all.
And your players are at the top of all the statistical categories. People are going to be paying attention. It might take a little longer for them to pay attention to Winnipeg, but they're doing it right now. Scotty, great stuff as always, man. Have a good weekend, and looking forward to talking Jets with you next week when the team's back at home for this big homestand. Thanks so much.
Yeah, for sure, guys.
Scott
Appreciate
Billeck,
it.
Winnipeg Sun, with us. All right, we're going to bring Brandon Rewucki on right away. I do want to quickly get to, as we bring Brandon in and move off this, the Fans First fan feedback segment. Of course, it's time to hear from you, always in the chat. Fan feedback is brought to you by fansfirst.ca, your best option for buying and selling tickets on the resale market with no fees, period. What you see is what you pay. And certainly if you are a season ticket holder that on occasion needs to sell a pair of tickets, the format, the customer service is unmatched. No-brainer to use Fans First when you do need to sell tickets. And we've had great feedback, speaking of fan feedback, from WSTers that have used the service so far this year. Heading over to the chat, I see a bit from Michael Stetsky, who we met last night. 19 years old, first-year season ticket holder, first WST event. Was great to meet you, Michael, last night. Thanks for coming out. Mentioned I met Mark Scheifele at a season ticket skate. My friend asked him if he missed Big Buff. He responded saying he missed his antics and his protection. LOL. But Jets number one's talking Kyle Connor right now. And if 81 gets 50-plus goals, the Jets can extend him next summer. They can extend him no matter what if they get it done. It'll be expensive, but it's a good problem, if you will, for Chevy to have. Some other great comments about the game last night, and we see Kyle Connor on Team USA with Connor Hellebuyck. Book that, and then comment said, well, maybe it's better if some of our guys don't play in the Four Nations and stay healthy at home. There's something to be said for that, but this is something that all players want to play in, and we'll talk about this with Brandon coming up about some of the players that might end up being on Team Canada, Team USA, that are members of the Winnipeg Jets. Keep the fan feedback coming in the chat. Fan feedback on Winnipeg Sports Talk is brought to you by Fans First, by fans, for fans, no fees. Let's welcome him in, the host of Skates and Plates, our guy, Brandon Rewucki. What's up, Rew? How are you? A beautiful glow right now on you.
There is an aura around
me. The mic
me.
looks like an award.
It would be the first, so that's nice. No, but yeah, or maybe it's just the shine of a 9-1 start. Who knows, man? But doing good.
Yeah, it was. I mean, listen, a fun night. You know, we were lots of people in the chat talking about the good times we had. You know, with Little Brown Jug and Boston Pizza last night. But I mean, we could have literally been anywhere, and people would have been pretty fired up with the way that game started. I mean, I mentioned this with Billeck. A lot of noise around the start of 5-on-5, despite the great record. I'm sure Scheifele heard it. Kyle Connor, Gabriel Vilardi, they made a pretty big statement last night in the first period, coming off a tough night in their first loss of the year, and did it emphatically, getting up to that 3-0 lead.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty hard to label it a coincidence that, you know, they have probably their roughest night. They get split up for the first time this season, first loss of the season. And that's the kind of performance that they deliver there. And I do think it was almost like a Custer's last stand. Like Scott O'Neill was saying, look, I've been faithful to you guys all year long. The results have been great outside of your 5-on-5 play, but now's the time that if you guys really like and enjoy and want to play together, I'm gonna need to see a little bit more there. And yeah, no surprise that if we see that all year, that line will not be broken up anytime soon. And for me, Huss, it's not even the goals, which are always great, but a big part of it to me is really two things when you talk about how a line is doing. One would just be, you know, if you take a look at some of the numbers and are they doing the little things right? You know what I mean? Like, are they out shooting the opposition? Okay, then are they out chancing the opposition? And that was the first time in a long time that I think we've seen them comfortably do so. But like, even take the goals off the board, they looked so dangerous. Like Detroit, it was basically the Red Wings were, let's park the bus and try to survive these shifts each time these three are out there, because they really didn't have a great answer in terms of how to stop them. So, I mean, those three, they could have been held off the score sheet in the first, Huss. And I think the sentiment is still the same, though, that, holy crap, that's the performance that probably the coaching staff and a lot of the fan base has been waiting for when it comes to specifically 5-on-5 play from those three, where that's what we saw from the Ehlers, Scheifele, Vilardi line last year, that kind of a performance. So yeah, if that continues, no complaints, no notes for me. Let's run that for the next 20, 30 games.
Well, and the funny thing is, like, you know, and listen, I mean, there are going to be line changes throughout the year. I mean, nothing's set in stone as much as this is sort of their plan A. And when you're winning, you're probably staying with it. But I will say this, I mean, and we kind of talked about this earlier this week on the show. Like, you can talk about changing the top line all you want. Kyle Connor is not going anywhere with the way that he's playing. Like, if you're going to talk about making a change, it doesn't start with number 81. And he's raised his level of play from a defensive level. I think he's harder on pucks. He's doing a great job of, you know, creating some turnovers that have turned into offense, and they're learning very quickly. You do that quicker, get the puck quicker, you're going to spend more time in the offensive zone. But, I mean, man, 500-point milestone last night in a 3-point night, another goal, 5th in points, one off the league lead in goals, and having played 3 less games than Nico Hischier. This has just been an amazing start by Kyle Connor, who I think, you know, certainly based on the first 10 games, we already knew that he was a star in this league, but he's pushing into another tier along with the best in the league.
Yeah, I mean, 500 points is crazy too. Like, I could have sworn he was 23 still. So yeah. time comes for us all, man. But pretty big milestone there, no doubt. And you know, when we talk about Kyle Connor, and look, there's no doubt defensively he's just going to give some back. Like, that's just the player that he is. He's not going to be approaching, you know, even just defensive wingers like Mark Stone and Mitch Marner and some of the other elite guys. He's never going to be close to that. But even if he has that in his game permanently, my big concern over the last couple of seasons was that the goals and the points weren't necessarily there. Like last year, he was, I think, outscored by 20 plus wingers in the NHL. But if you're scoring, basically, if you're leading the league in goals and hovering in the top 5 and top 10 in points, yes, you can live with bad defensive play. Like he is currently outscoring any of those problems that might exist. That's fine. So if he continues that, I really don't have a problem if he's going to ultimately maybe give some back into his own end. But I would also agree too that, all people wanted to see was just increased effort, compete, physicality from him in his half of the ice. And I think he's doing that. Again, he's not going to be in the upper half, in terms of defensive metrics, but that's got to be the message hammered home to him by the coaching staff. And I think it has been 100% so far, is that, more time in the fun zone equals bigger payday, more points, more goals, Team USA, all that fun stuff. But we just need a baseline in our end first to help get you there. And so he's delivering on all fronts. I would say from, albeit not as much hockey as I used to watch, but all the hockey that I've watched so far this season, he's been the most dangerous goal scorer in the NHL so far this year. He's been the most dangerous player with the puck on his stick. And now the main goal is to continue making sure that it's on his stick in the offensive zone. And so far, and I think last night was the best possible sign of that, because, maybe it was the Michigan boost or whatever it was, but he somehow amped up his skating to another level last night. And again, the Red Wings, there's a bit of a tough start to them for the season in terms of how much they've been outplayed so far, but it was just evident from puck drop. It was going to be a long night for the Wings, didn't have an answer for him.
Well, we had Sean Shapiro on yesterday, and he was mentioning, there was all those teams. I think last week or about 3 days ago, Boston, Toronto, Detroit, who else is in that? There's like 5 teams that were tied at 4-4-1. So a middling start, 500 for everybody. And Sean said, listen, if it wasn't for the 2 goaltenders, the Wings might be sitting down near the bottom of the standings. Boston, Montreal, Detroit, Buffalo are all 4-5-1 now. Ottawa and Toronto at 5-4. So it's really a middle, but it's been the goaltending that's gotten them there, and they really do need to step up. They were simply outclassed last night for most of the game, and with Lalonde on an expiring deal, I think Steve Yzerman's still pretty safe. I think you are going to feel the pressure ramp up in the Motor City. Back to Winnipeg though for a minute. We talked a lot about the response last night from the team overall. I don't think anyone needed it more than Neil Pionk after last night's game, or the game on Monday. And Dylan Sandberg for that matter too. They just had a miserable night. It was the Murphy's Law game. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. But, man, you want to talk about putting that one behind you and going out and having a great game. The jump that Pionk had early on scoring, I think it made him feel it even more. Ends up getting a couple. And, we can, that's the best way, just like you said, to move on from one bad night. And now you look at a 10-game sample where he's been playing some of his best hockey in a Winnipeg Jet uniform. And speaking of offense from the blue line, actually has more points than Josh Morrissey, and they're both over a point a game.
It's crazy. Even if you were optimistic leaning that Pionk would have a good start, like you just wouldn't have imagined this, right? Like Neil Pionk chasing down Cale Makar was not on the early season bingo card.
Pionk for Norris campaign. We didn't have anything ready.
Yeah, 2-3. Jets finishing 2-3 on the Norris ballot. But you're right. The Toronto game was a complete disaster. Plus minus to me is kind of whatever, but if you're -5 or -6 on the night, it kind of speaks to the type of evening that you had there. It's been an interesting kind of start to the season. It's mostly been positive for sure. The Toronto game was the big outlier in terms of negative results, but like the Seattle game, he had a bad turnover and then a bad try to make up for it, a bad pinch that led directly to I think Jordan Eberle scoring in that one. But he was great in that game outside of it. Like there have been peaks and valleys in his game, but 100% way more peaks than some of the dips that we saw in his play in the second half of last season. So contract year Neil Pionk is definitely a weapon. It was noticeable in the Detroit game as well. And it's funny you mentioned Morrissey. There were a few times the Jets were breaking out of their own zone. And I was like, oh, it's weird that Morrissey and Sandberg are being paired together right now. But it was Pionk jumping up into the play, super aggressive and skating real well. And it looked like Josh Morrissey trying to activate and, increase the numbers for the Jets on the rush. But Pionk's been doing that all year long. He's been very aggressive, hasn't been recklessly aggressive for the most part either in doing so. I mean, you can't really complain too much about 12 points through 10 games. But yeah, when you've got a couple point per game defenseman, things are going pretty well for you. Again, the thing with Neil, though, is going to be what's that performance like as the season moves along here? Because if he gives you this, the Jets, I know Elliot Friedman mentioned maybe looking at some help on the back end there, but if you get this Neil Pionk all year long, you don't need to worry about bringing in reinforcements on the back end. You can maybe shift to maybe some help up front.
Yeah, tied for second in defenseman scoring in the National Hockey League. I mean, Cale Makar is tied for the NHL lead in scoring with Mark Stone with 19 points through 11 games. But you move down, and at 12 points, there's two defensemen that have it. Neil Pionk with 12 points in 10 games, and Alex Pietrangelo with 12 in 11. So, listen, it's been a great start. And the funny thing is, with the big Michigan homecoming, we're talking about Connor and the milestone. Just another quietly brilliant night for Connor Hellebuyck. I mean, those two power play goals that went in were rockets that either got deflected, went in. Other than that, I mean, the team played very well in front of him and gave him one of those nights that, I think they're going to need if they want to play him as much as we expect to it. I kind of do think we'll see Comrie coming in on against the Columbus Blue Jackets tomorrow. And this is a big game. I was talking about this with Scott. They've played very well, very consistently. They found ways to win. They bounce back and get the big win in Detroit. This is one of those games, like I get the heebie-jeebies thinking about Columbus because they've had some real stinkers there in the past. But what an opportunity for this team to just move on past that Toronto game, pick up a couple wins, and then get back to move up a weight class with some of the teams that are coming into CLC next week.
That's exactly what it is, right? Like the schedule becomes a bit of a monster here moving forward. A ton of divisional matchups as well for the Jets. So, Columbus is playing much better than maybe a lot of us might have thought they would. And I did wonder, obviously, how they would deal with the tragedy in the offseason there. But, Dean Evason, he's a pretty good coach in Minnesota. Like, he got them playing some pretty good hockey. And I wonder a little bit if Columbus's last few seasons in terms of missteps have been more coaching related than maybe necessarily talent related. It's kind of played out that way so far this year, where they're in the mix in a pretty weak Metro division right now. So, and especially talking about that, Monahan and Marchenko have been one of the best duos in the NHL so far. Like, Monahan's having an amazing start to the season there. So it's not a free spot on the bingo card like it was last year. But yeah, you'd much prefer picking up 2 points here and then worrying about the stretch that's upcoming than dropping one here and maybe worrying about this turning into a 2 or a 3 game losing streak. But I agree with you as well that this is a perfect spot to get Comrie a little bit of action here as we continue the chase to keep Hellebuyck below 60 this year.
Yeah, well, and listen, as they say, I'm not as concerned about it than everybody else. I think the guy's built different, and I don't hang what happened on the playoffs on Hellebuyck at all.
He's the Derrick Henry of goalies?
The team, yeah. You know what? That's a great way of putting it. But in reality, especially with what's to come, like this next 10-game segment is against some heavy hitters in the league, and they're going to need for him to be at his best, but they're also going to need Eric Comrie to step up when he gets his chance. And listen, Comrie's got a .915 save percentage. I know there's a couple of goals that he certainly would have liked to have back, but the body of work so far through 2 has, I think, been a really good start. And assuming he gets that chance tomorrow, another real great opportunity to get another win when Connor Hellebuyck isn't in the net. And we saw how important Brossoit was in delivering points in those situations last year and what a big factor that was in the Jets finishing where they did. It'll be interesting to see what happens tomorrow. Hey, listen, before we go, we're going to start talking about this Four Nations tournament a lot more. And, as we sit here at the end of this great first month for Winnipeg, how many Jets do you think are going to be in the mix for a spot in the Four Nations? I mean, I think we can talk with the two guys on the homecoming tour last night as pretty much locks. I mean, Kyle Connor's going to be on that team, and Connor Hellebuck is probably going to be in net. When you look at the rest of the roster, particularly the Canadians, we've heard the name Adam Lowry, Mark Scheifele was always named. I mean, where are you at right now on guys that, potentially could play themselves onto the team considering their starts?
Yeah, so I would say there's two locks for sure in Hellebuck and Morrissey. And I think Josh Morrissey for me is going to be the guy that's kind of leading the way on the second pair too for Team Canada. I think he should at least. Kyle Connor's pretty much a lock at this point. The U.S. are pretty deep on the wing though, but I just think with his start and yes, like it's funny that you want specialists, and that's kind of why Lowry's in the conversation and the discussion, which is true. Like you want PK specialists and things like that. You also could use some power play specialists in these tournaments where special teams can be so valuable. So even if Connor isn't, say, a guy playing in the top six for Team USA, as a fourth line kind of break in case of emergency option, that would be a pretty good option for the U.S. to take. So I wouldn't say a lock, but 90% plus that he's more than likely going to be there. Pretty wild that I think Lowry's definitely got the inside track over Scheifele. But it's for the main reason of, Canada
it's a
can
totally
only
different role.
Yeah, exactly. That's like they can only take so many, which is kind of a funny thing to say. They can only take so many 90-point players, Huss.
So many incredible offensive.
Yeah, he's going to be in the mix. I think right now, I think we'll see Nick Suzuki get the edge over him. Just because Suzuki is able to play and capable of playing penalty kill. He, I believe, was a Selke nominee. I don't know if he was high as Lowry at 7th last year, but he's certainly gotten votes over the last couple of years. But there's just a little more offensive upside with Suzuki's game. So I really think that last spot on the fourth line comes down to two guys like Nick Suzuki. Maybe what they do with Sam Reinhart. Is he going to play on the wing? Is he going to play down the middle? But Lowry, no doubt about it, he's going to be in the mix. Might even be finding a way to sneak on as a 13th forward, 13th or 14th forward.
I mean, a guy that might not play a ton, but they can put in particular situations, playing out there with the lead. I mean, he's a guy that can do it. Obviously, a captain, an incredible guy to add to a team, a guy that's so respected around the league as well. And he does have 8 points in 10 games. I mean, it's not like he's just a guy where nothing happens offensively when he's been on, and that's a testament to their line and what they do at 5-on-5.
That's the big thing there, is that like if he had 4 points through 10 games, Canada has guys that can still get it. You know what I mean? But the fact that there's still a level of offensive production for him is huge. And one of my buddies actually mentioned this to me, and I don't know if you would agree with this, but it's worth consideration. Is that the U.S. team, they're going to have the Tkachuk brothers out playing a decent amount of hockey in this tournament. And, like, how much consideration do you give to having, not like an enforcer per se, but just somebody where you're like, okay, they can handle the Tkachuk brothers if need be. I don't know if that guy's on the back end right now. It's a little bit of a smaller Canadian blue line, but, like, does that potentially help Lowry out?
Oh, I was just about to say, there's a guy with a C on his chest in Winnipeg that would definitely be up for that challenge, and I think would love it. It's a fun conversation to have because, I mean, all of those players have earned their way into this conversation. And listen, it is going to be as high of an honor as most of these players have had in their career because of the lack of best on best. And I know it won't be the full Olympics until 2 years afterwards, but make no mistake about it. Every one of these players is chomping at the bit to represent their country and to finally give us the true best on best Canada, USA, Finland, Sweden. And it's going to give us some real fun conversations as we move forward. Brando, always great having you on the program, man. Have an awesome weekend. Are you going trick-or-treating? I guess now, young dad, you got to bring the kids out. What's the plan for tonight? And what are you giving out?
So we this is our first Halloween in the new neighborhood. So we'll see. We're kind of in a weird spot. I don't even know if we're going to get any kids at all. But we're a full-size chocolate bar house.
Oh,
so
that's key. That's
the
key.
kid. Yeah, we bought too much. So if anybody wants to hop by, you'll get a bit of a pirate's treasure amount of Mars bars and stickers heading your way. So we'll have one parent manning the house. The other one, I think, mostly with the 4-year-old. I think the other one's a little too young right now. So there'll be lots of carrying, lots of piggybacks, lots of tears, lots of sugar. It's going to be a battle, but we'll get through it.
Oh, buddy, great to have you on the program. Have a great one tonight with the family. Thanks for doing this. We'll talk to you next week. Looking forward to that conversation. Huge week at home for the Winnipeg Jets.
No doubt about it. Sounds good. Have a great weekend. We'll talk then.
All right. There's our guy, Brandon Rewucki, with us on the program. By the way, seeing in the chat, still lots of people talking about the event last night. And I know SK was talking, would love to do some sort of an event at Canada Life Center. Well, guess what? We have those events and would love to see as many of you as possible at our next Winnipeg Sports Talk Game of the Month, which is not this upcoming week, but the return of Paul Maurice and the Florida Panthers, the Stanley Cup champions, on the 19th of November. The Jets are actually going to see the Panthers twice coming up in the next 3 weeks. And, of course, the Panthers in Dallas, who they'll also see in the next little bit, playing in Finland over the next weekend, tomorrow and on Saturday. But the next WST game of the month is November 19th against the Florida Panthers. Go to winnipegjets.com/WST. You can see there's a different price for each game depending on if it's an A, B, or C. But we only had the one A game. That was the Pittsburgh game. It's done. So the tickets are even less for the upcoming games. It'll include a beverage with your ticket. We'll get together with the crew in the bar outside 316 beforehand. So SK, check out that schedule and plan to come in and hang with us for a game as we continue our get-togethers with our WST crew. So much fun last night. All right, we are going to talk a little CFL. I've been waiting all week to get the reaction from Regina to the miracle in Montreal. Jamie Nye is going to join us right away. Of course, we've got a new CFL 110 up right now. We're talking lots of Bombers, and when we talk Bombers on this program, we do it for Princess Auto, proud sponsors of the Blue and Gold, a company founded and headquartered right here in Winnipeg and now coast to coast with 3 Manitoba locations, including Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, and, of course, the Brandon location as well. And, of course, Princess Auto Stadium is going to be rocking on the 9th. We're going to find out who's coming to take on the Bombers for a trip to the Grey Cup on Saturday afternoon in Mosaic Stadium in Regina. But get your tickets for Princess Auto Stadium and the Bomber West Final right now. And make sure to check out one more time the Princess Auto tailgate party before the game. It will be rocking. PrincessAuto.com. You can also shop 24/7. 365. That game, they're going to need to stock up on Canadian Club, the fuel of Bomber fans at Princess Auto Stadium. Of course, Canadian Club is the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and is available throughout Princess Auto Stadium, along with the entire Beam Suntory family of spirits. You can also get the great taste of Canadian Club and ginger ale, pre-mixed cocktails in cans at the game, and at your local beer store the next time you're popping in, maybe looking for something a little different. And, of course, Canada's favorite and oldest Canadian whiskey, Canadian Club, is available waiting for you on your next trip to your local Manitoba Liquor Marts. The fencing and overhead door game deal is 12 months a year, folks. And while I know it was a very busy summer for Wallace & Wallace doing fences, that never really stops. And Wallace & Wallace are the fencing and overhead door specialists since 1946 in Winnipeg. If your property needs the security and protection of a new fence, they've got you covered with vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, or wood fences. And if you need a new garage door, Wallace & Wallace is the place to go. Something perfectly made to fit your home awaits you, as they're the Clopay dealer with the biggest and widest selection of overhead garage doors in town, which will beautify your house and add value to it as well. Give them a buzz, 452-2700. The Wallace & Wallace team will arrange a time to come out and give you a free estimate. You can also visit them at wallacefences.com or pop down to their showroom on Lawson Crescent off of Kenniston. And just before we head to Regina with Jamie Nye, shout out to the boys down at F Apparel, making Winnipeg men look great. If you're looking into the closet and realize that you need to up your menswear game as we get into winter and the holiday season, gang, get on down to 190 Smith Street for the best in custom men's suits, beginning at just $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and the biggest and best selection of men's accessories you will find anywhere in the city. And don't forget, if you are tying the knot or you're in a wedding party, make sure to talk to the guys at F about a 15% discount for the wedding party when you get your suits at F Apparel. They're down at 190 Smith Street. Check them out online and book a time to come in for a fitting at F, that's EPH apparel.com. All right, let's head out to Regina and welcome in our pal Jamie Nye, host of the Green Zone, for the latest on the CFL West Semi in the aftermath of the Bombers pulling one out in the final seconds in Montreal. Jamie, what's going on? How are you?
I'm very well, Hustler. How are you?
I'm great. Happy Halloween. Looking forward to the weekend. And listen, I will be honest. I still am not entirely over what happened in Montreal. That was one of the craziest games, and we've been talking about it all week.
You poor guys in Winnipeg got the most crazy leaf tornado in the history of football to help you get first place.
It was divine intervention.
So tough.
Listen, it wasn't tough. It was basically divine intervention, and I've been looking forward to talking to you all week. First of all, to talk about what's a really, really intriguing game in the West Semi for who will be coming to Winnipeg. But Jamie, I gotta ask you, how did the events of the final 30 seconds go over in Regina? Because I can't imagine, people must have just been like, what the hell? Dwayne Ford said God was a Bomber fan, and I understand people thinking that after what happened at the end of that football game.
No, God is not a Bomber fan. God is not a Bomber fan. God hates the Riders. That is what is happening. From the 13th man to Tony Gabriel to now leaf tornadoes, God hates the Riders. He doesn't love the Bombers. That's what we are convinced of in Saskatchewan anyways. But that was insane. We were on our pregame show, and we're keeping people up to date. And when Castillo misses the 61-yarder and there's a minute 10 left, I go, we are 70 seconds away from playing for first place. Look at this. All the Alouettes need to do is gain a couple of yards, kill the clock, and maybe, just maybe. But then I was like, and if they lose, if the Bombers lose, I guarantee the Riders are going to win against the Calgary Stampeders today. And then, but then I said, but it's the CFL. You never know what's going to happen. And it happened.
That's
you never know happened.
CFL journalist right there. I mean, it was the damnedest thing. And you could almost see the shock, like even on Mike O'Shea at the end after they're celebrating, he looks over to that end where this leaf tornado appeared from and just sort of shook his head.
Well, Rick Campbell was on the show yesterday with us, and he said, the head coach of the BC Lions, and he said he didn't watch it live, but he watched the All 24 CFL feed that they get for their film, and he said it was unbelievable because you could see the flags actually turn. Like they're going one, and then it just like flipped around. It was like even as a veteran CFLer like Rick Campbell is, he was even going, I don't know if I've ever seen that before on what happened.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think people will be talking about that for years, and it may not mean anything if the Bombers can't, win their next game and get to the Grey Cup and hopefully, get over the hump that they haven't been able to in their last two trips. But tell us about how that played out in the Rider locker room, because of course we know that result meant everything. Whether the Riders had the Stampeders, who had basically packed it in for the season, you got to beat them at home, and you're on a bye and hosting the West Final, to all of a sudden having to play this week against BC, regardless of what happened in their game against the Stamps?
Well, they were on the field. Some of them, like they had the Winnipeg Montreal game on the big screen at Mosaic Stadium. So they were warming up about an hour and 15 minutes before, going through their walkthrough stuff. And their TSN has a great shot of Corey Mace, who didn't even flinch. Like all this drama is playing out on the big screen behind him, and he didn't even flinch. As he said after the game, I was just watching our specialist kick and that stuff, and how I didn't even notice until, it's like, okay, here's the roster, because they had a plan, of course, in place. If Winnipeg wins, they were going to bench a bunch of guys. They knew that going in, but the players were kind of peeking up and going, oh, here we go. And then they were devastated. Like it was, we're playing for first. They had it in their head. Here we go. They were getting amped up, and then just deflated. And then, we're benching Harris, and we're benching Ouellette, and we're benching Keyshawn Johnson and Sam Emelis and Roland Milligan. And they look like a team who all of a sudden had their hearts ripped out and had nothing to play for on Saturday as they laid an egg against the Stampeders.
Yeah, and listen, I don't think anyone in that room cared. All of a sudden, the minute that field goal went through, it was about the West semifinal, and BC was coming here, and you make your appropriate roster decisions. Must have been a real buzzkill in the stadium for the fans, because people that were there watching that. Listen, I think when you look big picture about this season, it's been a crazy one in the CFL overall. But you have Mace come in and kind of create this new culture, the great start. Then the team goes 2 months without winning a football game, incredibly, because I think they deserved a few along the way, and then really turned it around the end. And I think is progressing really well at this time of the year. But to be right there on the cusp of a momentous game that could have meant the West Final, I really would have taken the air out of everyone wearing green in the stands, I'd imagine.
Oh, yeah. Everybody was just like going into that stadium like, oh, well, this is going to be a dud. Like, because it just completely deflated the energy. Now, and tickets didn't really move for that game. It was the lowest attended game in the new stadium. And I think a lot of Rider Nation had already just assumed that Montreal would, rest a bunch of guys in the second half and Winnipeg would win anyways. Like I was on the radio going, Winnipeg's going to win. This game's going to be meaningless. And it did happen, but it happened in a very dramatic fashion that I wouldn't have predicted. So yeah, Rider Nation, I think already had it in their head that they're probably not going to play for much until that final, half hour when, oh my goodness, the Montreal Alouettes are still in the league. Could they hold on? This could mean something, and then it didn't. So I think that impacted kind of the walk-up tickets. I don't think a lot of people were like, it's going to be a meaningless game anyways going in. So that's why tickets were a little soft last week. So yeah, it sucked for Rider fans not to have something to play for Saturday against Calgary.
Well, they've got a lot to play for on Saturday, and that is a trip to Winnipeg for potentially a trip to the Grey Cup. And for a team that, finished so poorly the last couple seasons, it has been a great turnaround. And I'll say this team is no joke. I think they've got a championship-level defense, and when the offense is clicking, this is the team that can beat anyone. And they didn't just beat BC. They humiliated them a couple weeks ago with Nathan Rourke. What do you make of VA being in for British Columbia and how this team may look different? Because they're going to have to look a hell of a lot different if they just want to hang with the Riders in this game.
Yeah, that's just it. I'm a big fan of Vernon Adams Jr. game. I think he is a game changer and possibly the game changer in this game coming up on Saturday against the Rough Riders. I am picking the Riders, but by a nose. Like this, I think this is going to be a fantastic football game. Trevor Harris, of course, is the hottest quarterback in the Canadian Football League. His 4-game winning streak, there hasn't been a quarterback better in the Canadian Football League than Trevor Harris. So then Vernon Adams comes off the bench and lights up Montreal, and you think, okay, that evens the playing field, because when it was Trevor Harris against Nathan Rourke, it was not even a question. 39-8, as you mentioned, it was just blowout for the green and white. But I saw a team, Hustler, like, didn't you see it in BC? It felt like, hey, we got our guy back. Like, nothing against Nathan Rourke, but let's consider Vernon Adams Jr. for 2 straight off seasons brought his receiving core to his place and his training facility to work out. Like, he invited his receivers down and did little mini training camps the last 2 off seasons as the leader and the quarterback. He is their guy. I don't think there's any question in that room who they want to follow. And Nathan Rourke was put in an unenviable position of big money. And of course, BC was going to sign him. Like Rick Campbell told us yesterday, there's no way we wanted Nathan Rourke to go end up somewhere else and beat us in the playoffs. Of course, we were going to sign him, but it did lead to a very difficult, chemistry going on. But I saw that chemistry in BC. I saw a team fired up, ready to go with VA there. They're flashing their signs and everything else on the field. And that's why I think it evens up with, I don't know, maybe the Riders will need a leaf tornado to win on Saturday.
Well, listen, I don't know if I'll go that far, but I do think, and I'm with you, I think the BC Lions are a much more formidable opponent than they were, a couple of weeks ago. And, just on the whole Vernon Adams situation, I mean, it was sort of bizarre. Like 7 weeks into Nathan Rourke's return in a big game, VA's the guy with the entire team around him beforehand when he's not even starting, leading the team going on. And it's very clear that he's the emotional leader of this team. And it was exactly what they needed, maybe at the last possible minute. Now, Jeff Hamilton brought up a good point yesterday on CFL 110. He's maybe not buying BC as much because, listen, they beat a Montreal team that didn't even want to get on the plane and travel across the country. And, I mean, it wasn't quite the test. It's nothing close to the test that they're going to have at Mosaic Stadium. But I'm kind of with you, Jamie. It's hard to ignore just how different that team looked because they sort of seemed completely defeated and done in that game in Regina a couple weeks ago. And it was a complete 180 with VA at QB.
Absolutely. I think maybe this is cliche and like Captain Obvious, but I think the first couple of drives of this football game are vitally important for the BC Lions to get that same energy they had against the Alouettes, because if the crowd gets into it and they have to go one-dimensional, and you have Roland Milligan and you have Marcus Sales and you have CJ Revis looking to ball hawk knowing they have to throw, the Riders are plus 20 or something in giveaway takeaway this year? Like, not even close. They're the best team in takeaway ratio. So they're ready. They put the ball in the air. We'll go get it. I don't think they're worried about the 420 some yards that VA threw against them in July and Justin McInnes went off. I think that they can't wait to take away William Stanback, take a lead, make Vernon Adams throw it around a little bit, and go take the ball away like they've done all season.
You mentioned Trevor Harris, and I'm glad you brought it up because, as we've been talking about MOP candidates, Milligan, with the brilliant season that he's had and everything that he's done on the defensive side of the football, has sort of been the guy that's thrown out. And I know Harris missed a few games at the beginning of the season, but did he have maybe the most overlooked quality season in the entire Canadian Football League this year? I kind of think he did.
Well, I'm glad to see that he was the West Division All-Star, or whatever they're calling it now, All CFL West team. Sorry, did my eyes roll there? But he is the All-Star quarterback in the West, and I think that was the appropriate pick. He's probably going to lose to Bo, but for the CFL nod. But I just looked at his season, and it was just quietly great in the games he was in. Like, he started the season 3-0 until his injury, ended the season 4-0, really. Like, that's a 7-0 record. Then you take the 6 games he wasn't even in, and you look at this team with 9 wins, and 7 of those are Trevor Harris when he was in the lineup. Like, he's got a very good record as the starting quarterback for the Rough Riders. One of the better winning percentages, actually, in the Canadian Football League at quarterback. So, yeah, he's really grabbed this team and led them. He's their emotional leader, and I wouldn't have thought that about Trevor Harris when he was in Ottawa and then in Edmonton. But there's something about him since he landed in Saskatchewan that he's kind of taken control as the leader of the Rough Riders, and he says the right things, he does the right things. He's a great teammate. He's a very good leader, and I think this team believes in him like the BC Lions believe in Vernon Adams Jr.
Well, and this organization and that football team needed it so badly this year. I mean, there was a lot of talk. I mean, listen, coming off 2 consecutive seasons where you don't win after Labor Day, can really take the steam out of an organization. And I know it created a lot of work earlier on to put some asses in seats and move forward, but people, I think, wanted to have the confidence that this team was going in the right direction. How much does he and Corey Mace have to do with where they're at right now, and how significant of a step forward was it before we even get to Saturday and the result of the playoff game?
Well, with this team moving forward, Corey Mace comes in. Trevor, I have to go back. You think of the 07, like winless in 7. Think of last year. You're looking at a team that changed their quarterback and their offensive coordinator because they threw those guys to the wolves and said, yeah, that needs to improve. And then those two guys go and win a Grey Cup, for crying out loud. Do you think that went over well in Saskatchewan? Not a chance. So Corey Mace comes in, completely new energy from Craig Dickinson. And you can see it in the way he prepares every day, the way he speaks every day. It's just consistency. There's a consistency and an intensity, a quiet intensity from Corey Mace that I think really works well with Trevor Harris. I think they're the same that way, and it's trickled through. And they went out. Look at all the guys they brought in. Jameer Thurman, Grey Cup ring. You have AJ Ouellette, Grey Cup ring. You're bringing in guys, Philip Blake, Grey Cup ring on the offensive line. I know he got injured early in the season. Jamarcus Hardrick, Grey Cup ring. They brought in a lot of people around Corey Mace to really build that leadership, to get to a team that believes, and I believe, they can win a Grey Cup this season, because I think this is as wide open a playoffs as I think we've ever seen going into November.
Well, I agree. I mean, it speaks to just the insane season that we just had, particularly in the West. I mean, with BC and Saskatchewan and Winnipeg all being on top of the division at some point, and really the margin between the three teams being pretty damn close as we get into this week. That being said, the reward for finishing first is significant. You're not playing this week. You get to sit back and watch these two teams go at it. I got to tell you, I mean, another West final between the Bombers and Riders would be amazing. And I think these two teams are as close as they've been, to be honest, in a very, very long time. But to get there, what's the path to victory for the Riders? I mean, when they kick off Sunday or Saturday afternoon, what do you be looking for? And what will Corey Mace be laying out to his club? Do this, and we'll be in Winnipeg the following week.
Well, take the ball away. That's the easiest one in the playoffs. But AJ Ouellette, you get AJ Ouellette rolling, and you start beating the Lions off the ball. They have an okay defensive line, I think an underrated defensive line like the Riders. And we know why they brought in AJ Ouellette. We just haven't really seen it yet. And he's ready to go. He dyed his hair because he won a Grey Cup with dark hair in 2022. Then he dyed it blonde. And so now he's dyed it back the other way. So he thinks there's some sort of, I don't know, superstition there. So, and Rider Nation. So if they get rolling and you see this team start to own the clock and keep Vernon Adams cold on the sideline, I think their run game is going to be vital, because once that sun dips behind the horizon, it's going to be run the rock time in the CFL playoffs.
What do they expect the weather to be like for the game?
Right now, it looks like it's going to be pretty decent, like 10 degrees during the day. So probably about 8 at kickoff, and then it dives down pretty quick, as I said, when the sun goes down. But come on, Hustler, we'll take that 100 times out of 100 when it comes to weather in November.
No, there's absolutely no doubt about that. Speaking of that, I mean, obviously the fan base is somewhat rejuvenated, but like we know, it takes work, and it is late in the year. I mean, are they expecting a good crowd right now? And how challenged are they to fill that place?
They are. I don't know what's going on. Ticketmaster one day had a lot of empty seats, and then Ticketmaster the next day could barely find one. I'm seeing people, ask about ticket giveaways and stuff like that. So I don't know how much they're trying to paper the place, but it was the lowest attended game, 22,700 at the new Mosaic last week. I don't think this organization wants to be embarrassed for a playoff game with a new team. So I'll be interested to see what they don't announce walk-in crowd. They announce tickets distributed. So I'm interested to see what that number looks like compared to what we see in the stands. So I'm thinking they'll get above 25,000. I'm hoping they can get 30,000 in there. But I'm not so sure right now on where Rider Nation is at. They're still out there, but they're not going to games this late in the season.
Well, listen, it's a hell of a matchup, and cannot wait to see it and see who comes down to Winnipeg. I know you're all over the CFL. Any thoughts on Toronto and Ottawa? I mean, I said to Hammer, if we're talking about Ottawa going to Montreal the next week, I'll be stunned, and it's probably a choke job on the behalf of the Argos. But that's exactly what we saw from Chad Kelly last year in the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, here's when I say open playoffs, there's 5 teams. If you tell me BC, Saskatchewan, Winnipeg, Montreal, or Toronto win the Grey Cup this year, I'm not going to be like, wow, that's an unbelievable story. If Ottawa does, that's the team in the playoffs where I'm like, that would shock me the way they've finished their season. It wasn't good at all. Darius Pickett was a tough injury to deal with for the Ottawa Red Blacks. Yeah. So I am picking the Toronto Argonauts this week. So that's my prediction. I'm a lot more confident in that one than I am picking the Riders over the BC Lions.
Jamie, of course, the rivalry is incredible on both sides of the border. There's fans of the other teams. Fill people in on what you've got going on the show, and of course on game day for people that want to tune in to the Rider Nation as they get ready to try to book that ticket to Winnipeg the following week.
Yeah, of course, you can check us out all week. You can check out our podcast. We had Rick Campbell, we had Jeremy O'Day on yesterday. Ben Grant's joining us today for a playoff preview out of the Argos and the Red Blacks. And we have you covered in Saskatchewan for all those in Rider Nation. CJME.com, CKOM.com is where you can live stream our show. Game day, we always start 2 hours ahead of time with the great Belton Johnson and Daryl Davis. And, of course, you can check out our socials at Green Zone SK on Twitter, Instagram. And I believe my producers put us on TikTok now for, I don't know how that works. And also Facebook is where you can find me, Jamie and I, the sports guy, and Locker as well to follow all the coverage getting ready. I can't wait. But I'll tell you this. I already said it on the air, so I'll give it to Winnipeg. The winner of this game this Saturday beats the Bombers in the West Final.
Oh,
that's my pick.
Hot takes all around heading into it. Well, handle your business. I will be honest, I'd be a lot more worried about Saskatchewan, I think, than BC, just considering what we'll probably have outdoors in November in Winnipeg. But I'll tell you what, this is going to be a good one. And hey, listen, let me know what that TikTok account is. I want to see you and Locker doing a bunch of corny dances and giving out 5 booms and stuff like that, just to let everyone know what's happening for
I don't know if Locker
Riders.
Does TikTok dances, Hustler. I don't know if he does that. I don't know if he's
It's game. A new era of the show. Anyways, honestly, good luck with that. And say hi to him. I know he's got a lot of fans here from his time on the radio in Winnipeg. Be well, enjoy the weekend, and here's hoping that we get to talk Bombers Riders next week on both our respective programs.
Absolutely. That'll be a blast. Thanks, Hustler, as always.
Not just for the showboats or the champions. We're here for the good ones. The ones who work hard and show up for others not to get recognized, but because it's the right thing to do. We'd like to think that our good intentions show up in our beer. We keep working to perfect it, not because we want fame or fanfare, but because you deserve it. 1919, the good you deserve.
All right. Yeah, Jamie getting a bit of heat from his prediction in the chat. Stick to science, Mr. Nye. Had to laugh. But anyways, that was a great conversation. Jamie's an absolute beauty. And I say bring on the Riders. Bring on the Riders. Let's go. Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, November 9th. I do think they'll get it done. But as I said yesterday on CFL 110 with Hammer, I think this is going to be a heck of a lot closer than that blowout we saw a couple weeks ago now that VA is leading the Lions into battle. Let's do our why not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. Sask, BC, who you got? Who is coming to Winnipeg on November 9th? Let us know your pick for the game in the chat. for the why not question of the day. Of course, we just had our Little Brown Jug spot. Huge thanks to them for being part of that fun that we had at the Boston Pizza last night for the WST watch party. Of course, Little Brown Jug now available at Boston Pizza, Polo Park, as well as some other select Boston pizzas. The Great Taste of 19, of which we had plenty last night, also available, along with all the other great Little Brown Jug beers at your local beer store. And speaking of Boston Pizza, huge thanks again to the great staff at BP Polo Park. Man, do they take great care of all of our listeners and viewers that pop by for the game. Listen, we'll do that again at some point, but I think anyone that was there sees BP is such a great place to watch the game. It's on all the screens. The sound is cranked. The pick a player contest with some great prizes. It was so much fun. So tomorrow, if you're looking for a great spot to watch the game, head on over there. And don't forget, you've got the new 15-minute lunch special right now. In and out real quick, guaranteed. If it's not ready, I believe, in 20 minutes, your next one is free. Pop by your local Boston Pizza today and any day for the best in sports watching, beer drinking, and munching on all that great food over with our friends at Boston Pizza. And a huge thanks to Royal Sports as well. We had some great Royal Sports jet ski that were given away last night. They'll do that at Boston Pizzas on game days as well. And listen, if you need a Jets lid, a toque, a jersey, you name it, Royal Sports has it. The biggest selection in town, period. Not to mention amazing Bomber stuff, including many exclusives you won't find anywhere else, just in time for the road to the Grey Cup. NFL merchandise, NHL, and the biggest and best hockey section in town. Everything from full equipment and goalie gear, all the way down to stick tape, pucks, and skate sharpening. Royal Sports, a one of one, 750 Pembina Highway. Check them out on Instagram as well at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. All right, Moose are back this weekend, and we do have some tickets to give away. You can check out that link at the top of the chat if you want to enter to win tickets for Saturday night's game for the Manitoba Moose. And we had a great time sitting down with a number of Moose players right before the season on their production day. And one of maybe my favorite one was with a newcomer, Dylan Anhorn, who scored his first pro goal last weekend for the Manitoba Moose. It was a really fun chat of a young man that brings a lot of energy to the squad. I think you're going to enjoy this. This was our chat with Dylan Anhorn of the Manitoba Moose.
Back getting ready for Moose season here at Canada Life Centre on Winnipeg Sports Talk, welcoming one of the newest members of the Moose. Did join the club late last season after finishing his NCAA career, Dylan Anhorn. Dylan, welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Thanks for having me.
It is great to have you on the program. I remember you coming over at the end of last season, getting into a couple of games, into a playoff game. How much did that quick period of time after signing with the club help you, get ready for your first full pro training camp over the last few weeks?
Yeah, I think a ton. You just get acclimated to the staff, to the coaching staff, obviously, the style of play, the game speed, everything. So I think it made a big difference and helped steer and direct summer training for sure going into camp.
Long line of players that have cut their teeth first in the American Hockey League before moving on have come from NCAA hockey, and that is what you did. But you are an Alberta guy. You've got a pretty interesting path, and it's been a weird, like for everyone in the world over the kind of COVID year until now has been a strange. But tell us about your path from Union to St. Cloud and now here to the Peg.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I played my junior hockey in Prince George, BCHL. I was fortunate enough to win a championship there in my second year, and then went over to Union College in upstate New York. Played my freshman season, and then sophomore year we were one of the handful of NCAA teams that canceled completely. So then I had an 18-month off season.
What did you do?
Trained a lot, to be honest with you. We thought we were playing all the way until the end of December, because they kept pushing it back and then eventually just canceled it completely. So it was a lot of working out and skating, but I tried to stay super motivated. But by the end of 18 months, you're dying to play games, right? And then we did play games. My junior year started, and I ruptured my spleen second game of the year on just a fluky rub out. It wasn't even a hard hit. It was ridiculous. And then I missed the first half of that season, transferred to St. Cloud the following season, was having a great year, and our team was we were first in the country at the end of January there when I ended up breaking my foot, needed surgery, and then I came back for another season last year and ultimately signed with the Moose and joined them at the end of last season.
You obviously, both dealing with what was happening in the world that probably affected your team and program more than others, and then some injuries. You must have learned quite a bit of perseverance over the last number of years that I would imagine will help you when you come into the ups and downs of the journey that is being a pro player.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I've experienced a lot of things short of pro hockey now, so I think I've got a lot of stuff that can help me benefit, and I think those extra years in college, even though I dealt with a lot of adversity, felt like I was able to build my game into a spot where I'm pretty confident I can hopefully make a good impact here.
Take us back to last year. You finish up at St. Cloud and sign with the Manitoba Moose. How did that all come together, and who were maybe some of the key individuals that were a part of the decision to sign here and come to the org?
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, talking with my agent and my family, got a lot of information, and I just went through the decision-making process with them. And Zinger, actually the head manager here with the Moose, he was really good at laying out information and very responsive and communicative, which I appreciated. And then just talking with some of the players that had been here. Actually, I knew Cole Meyer beforehand because he was at the Union for a bit, and I'd known of him. Spoke with a couple other guys too, and only heard great things about the organization. So I was excited to come here and start with my opportunity.
Now, unlike many of the last off seasons where there's some uncertainty of if you were going to play or going to a new team, you knew exactly what was to come. I mean, that familiarity, having been here before, I'm sure really helped heading into training camp. But tell us about the off season training, where you were, and what you did when you were getting away from hockey training and away from the ice.
Yeah, absolutely. I spent my summer in Calgary, like I do with all summers back home. And like we talked about, that month I had with the Moose here at the end of last season really helped me steer my summer training. And I actually got the opportunity to skate a good amount with Josh Morrissey, Scheifele, Adam Lowry, Anderson Dolan, a bunch of Calgary guys that are obviously in the organization here, and just asked them a few questions. And
that must have been cool. Yeah, it was good to be able to lean on guys that have been on this path.
Exactly.
Both played with the Moose and obviously now with the Jets.
Absolutely, and just to play against them on the ice as well too, to measure yourself up, know what you need to improve on, all that sort of stuff. And then we're working out and trying to get stronger, trying to get faster, trying to get a better shot, everything, you know how it is. So I feel like I had a really good summer, put myself in a good position to make an impact in camp, and hopefully I started turning some heads.
What about Stampede? Did you take in the festivities of the Calgary Stampede?
I did go twice, yeah. I saw a couple concerts. Who did I see? I saw Tyler Hubbard, Steve Aoki, just a couple.
Hey, listen, that's what summer in Calgary's all about, right? Skate during the day, and then during that time, you get out there. Personally for you, goals for this season. I mean, your first full pro year. I mean, you had that chance to kind of familiarize yourself with it. Actually, before we get to the goals, tell us about Penticton, because I'm sure being a young player, getting a chance to go there, compete against all of your peers before going to your first pro training camp, probably an experience that helps out. How did it go for you? How did you enjoy it? And how did that help you put your best foot forward in Jet Camp?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just a great experience to be able to wear the Jets logo and play against the other Western Canadian teams that you obviously grow up watching. So that obviously a great way to start the year. And that tournament was what I had in mind for a lot of the summer training that kept me motivated. So that's exactly, I wanted to make an impact there, make a statement on management. And I feel like I had a pretty good camp for the most part, starting with that weekend. And just starting the process of turning heads, like we talked about, a bit of an older player now for first year pro coming out of college. So I want to be able to have an impact right away and hopefully be able to make a statement.
Well, that statement, you'll have the first chance for a statement to be made in Iowa to open the season. And of course, the home opener right here on October 26th. But fill people in that haven't seen you play a little bit on what kind of package you bring to the table, what you hope to be as a pro and as a Manitoba Moose, and eventually hopefully an NHLer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm a two-way defenseman. I think my strengths are skate really well. I think I got really high hockey IQ, my competitiveness through the roof. So I just want to bring consistency with those things every day, play to my strengths. help out the team on both sides of the puck, and hopefully I'll be able to have a good, consistent impact with that and help the Moose win.
How excited are you? I can just tell from talking to you, you're sort of guy that probably in NCAA hockey there were some things that might be not commonly seen that you might be in. I mean, you've got the toots already missing. I mean, you came ready to go. Did that happen in camp, or has that just been something you've had for a while?
I've had it for a long time. I got a first-year junior, so I've been rocking this for seven years almost. So, yeah.
There'll be a time to get the grill fixed afterwards. You never know when it'll get banged up as well, probably. But I mean, personally, first year pro here in Manitoba, I mean, have you set out personal goals, or is it just a matter of making the team, being a regular out there, and as you said, making a statement about the sort of player you are for the organization and taking it from there?
Yeah, I've definitely set personal goals. I don't really like sharing the specifics of it too much, but I definitely I feel like I can be a player in this league and be someone that can be an impact player in this league and hopefully turn a lot of heads and hopefully eventually earn myself an opportunity moving up further. So that's the goal. Obviously, want to take it a step at a time and make sure you're being consistent every day and just making an impact.
So Dylan, tell us about yourself off the ice. When you're not training and doing hockey things, how do you spend your time, and what are you into?
Well, in the season, it's pretty hockey focused, right? It's kind of rink apartment, back to the rink, back to the apartment, right? So, I mean, you hang out with teammates. Obviously, you do some stuff, go to movies or go to the rec room or something, that sort of stuff. But outside of the season in the summer, like to hang out with friends, family. We go to our lake that's nearby. We play some volleyball, go fishing, go boating, that sort of stuff. So the usuals.
You'll fit in Manitoba very, very well. How have you found the fellas so far on the squad so far? Are there any particular guys that you've sort of gravitated to and are hanging out with a little bit more early on?
They've been great. It's been awesome. It's a really good group. Credit to the management for bringing in such great people on top of great players. So at the end of last year, I spent a lot of time in the hotel there with Carson Golder, Thomas Milich, Devin Barlow. So Colby Barlow. I have a friend named Devin Barlow. I don't know why I keep doing that mentally. Colby Barlow. So I spent a lot of time with those guys.
The hotel guys probably get to know each other pretty well.
Yeah.
Come in late.
Carpooling every day, right? Yeah. So no, we spent a lot of time together. Mark Rewucki too. So it was a good group, and so I think I'm pretty close with those guys, as well as a lot of the team. To be honest, it's a great group.
Guess the only thing left to do is drop the down puck. How anxious are you, the guys, to actually get out there in a game that means something?
I think we're super excited to play against. You can only do inter-squad games against your own team for so long until you get tired of hitting each other and you're ready to hit a different logo out there. So I think we're super excited for it.
Dylan, listen, great to meet you for the first time. We'll definitely have to do this again at some point this year. But best of luck to you and your teammates getting things going this weekend. And we'll look forward to seeing you make that first statement in front of the home fans on the 26th of October.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much. There's Dylan Anhorn for the Manitoba Moose on WST. Oh, man, he was a beauty, Dylan Anhorn. And congratulations again on his first pro goal last weekend. Moose at home tomorrow at 7, Saturday at 6. And again, we've got that contest up at the top of the chat. Get in on that if you want to win some tickets to Saturday's game. Shout out to our members. We got a member offer for the game tomorrow night as well. Great to see all those gold mics. Thanks again for the support, or all the mics, frankly. All right, there has been a request for Hustler and Remis's top 5 Halloween candy power poll rankings. We will do that in just a moment. But first, let's get to the Cool Bet lines. And as I get into the Cool Bet account, it looks pretty good tonight, thanks to Kyle Connor, goal, the Winnipeg Jets win, and Connor Hellebuck allowing 2 or less goals last night. We got a nice win at 4-1 in the WST parlay. So we will try to keep it going. NFL or NHL tonight. Pretty interesting slate of games. We got the Bruins on the road in Carolina. Carolina, first game back after a really long road trip. Bruins coming off a shutout in their last game. Bruins plus 153, Canes minus 182. We got the Flyers minus 147 favorites over the Blues, who just got their asses kicked by the Ottawa Senators
believe it was 8-1 in their last outing. The Ducks, plus 155 at Pittsburgh, minus 184. The Leafs, minus 200 favorites at home against the Kraken, who just put up 8 on the Habs. The Habs coming off that drubbing, a big underdog tonight, plus 185 against the Capitals. Have actually had a really good start this year. Caps, minus 222. And the Oilers, without Connor McDavid, go into Nashville, a place where Leon Draisaitl has absolutely 8 in the past, 25 goals in Nashville in 27 games. He'll be leading the way tonight along with Nuge in the 1-2 center spot. Oilers plus 110, Preds minus 130. And the Blackhawks Sharks. Make sure to stay up late for that one, folks. Minus 154 for Chicago. Sharks a home dog at plus 130. I'll get to a couple exclusives, but we've got the Texans and the Jets. Wow, this line has now moved to New York, minus 2.5. Kind of bizarre to see a 2-6 team favored over a 6-2 team, but that's where we're at. Big losses at wide receiver with Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs out for the Texans. Now, if we go to the combo cards, let's see what we've got here. Maybe it's all into the they do have the haunted house calls up there today. Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, and Joe Mixon, all of them to get in, plus 673. But if we go into the exclusives, we've got the Lock Shop Partner Parlay tonight. We're going to go C.J. Stroud under 221.5 passing yards, Joe Mixon 75 or more rushing yards, and over 3.5 field goals made. That's at 6-1. I'm on that one. And then we've also got, we are going to be putting together a Oilers-Bruins 2-gamer. We weren't going to go 3 games tonight, but we're taking those two underdogs, Bruins at plus 153 and the Oilers at plus 110. And then if you go into the Cool Bet exclusives, there's one that I really like for tonight that I will tell you about. I against my better judgment, I'm taking the Jets tonight. They have to win this game. I think Houston is in a bad spot coming off. I mean, they're both on a short week. But they do have kind of a bit of a cushion, and I do think it's going to be difficult. I mean, it's going to be a lot of Joe Mixon tonight because I'm not sure how much they're going to get in the air with that good Jets secondary and the depleted Houston passing game. There's a whole bunch of daily NFL exclusives, but the one that I like, Halloween theme, the Adams family. Devontae Adams, 50 or more receiving yards, 1 touchdown, and the Jets to win. That is plus 375. So I'm in on that. Big lock shop tomorrow. Best bets for NFL Week 9. Myself, Pat, and Jake. While Dusty is on the DL right now and hopefully is going to be able to call that game. He's been really sick all week. He's got a big day calling that BC-Saskatchewan game. So join us tomorrow noon on Edmonton Sports Talk before we fire up our big Friday show, a game day show, before the Jets finish off this quick 2-gamer in Columbus. All right. By the way, if you haven't played a cool bet before, use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. All right, let's get Remo in here. Remo, what are your Halloween plans?
Big plans.
What are the
tonight.
kids dressed up as? Pirates, bees?
My son is Leonardo of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
For sure he was going to go as a Ninja Turtle. He did tell me that Leonardo was his favorite of the 4.
So, yeah, and my daughter was going as Lobster. We got a nice costume, doubles as
lobster.
a jacket. Yeah, so I'll pull him in the wagon. We'll probably go around the block on our street. Like, they don't even eat candy, really.
Well, you do.
I do. My son, last couple of years, he wasn't into candy.
Kids, get ready. We're going out for 4 hours tonight.
Well, I went to Costco. What we're giving out, I went to Costco, and I got the pack they have of I forget what's in it, Kit Kat and Arrow. I forget what's in that one, but I got the Costco chocolate bars. So we're giving those out. We've been keeping a spreadsheet going for the last couple of years of how many kids and the times they show up. That's some Halloween analytics for you, Hustler. And yes. I think we should be getting like 30 to 40 kids. I don't think we're getting a lot. We're not on one of those crazy we're not on one of those crazy streets. So we'll go. He's got some friends on our street. We'll walk around and knock on the doors, say trick or treat.
You're going to be wired tomorrow for the show, eating it. All right, let's do our power polls.
Mm-hmm.
I got mine ready. I'll go first. Number 5 on the Halloween candy power poll is the Mars bar. I really do like Mars. It's not quite in, sort of the top 3. There's some higher choices, but it deserves to be on the list. Number 4 is M&M's. I know you'll see some Smarties on there. And listen, it's not like I'm going to turn down Smarties. But between the two, I go M&M's, and my favorite are the peanut over the regular chocolate. But we're just going with M&M's as number 4. Number 3 is the Kit Kat. And I will say this, through some research, I actually will put the Kit Kat Chunky up against just about any bar. Obviously, Kit Kat Chunky's probably not going out on Halloween. It's the old school ones, the 2-finger, I'm fine. Or maybe if you're lucky and you're a full-size bar household, you're getting 4. But Kit Kat, synonymous with Halloween for me. Number 2 is Snickers. It satisfies. It is one of the all-time great chocolate bars. It always seemed to go first out of the bag, or very close to first out of the bag when it was in my Halloween sack. So Snickers is number 2. And an unquestioned number 1 from me is the original Reese Peanut Butter Cup. I'm in on pretty much everything that Reese produces. But when you think about Halloween, when I saw those orange squares in the bucket, I got excited. Reese Peanut Butter Cup, number 1 for me. Remo, what say you?
Good list, Hustler. Good list. I'll give mine. I don't have Smarties on mine. M&M's far superior. I don't like the peanut M&M's. Here's my list. Number 5, Rockets. They're basically sugar pills. You can only have them around Halloween.
Yes.
I do enjoy a good rocket. I think they're called. Those are called Smarties in the States. Fun fact. Number 4. The rest of these are chocolate bars. Crunch. Love a good Crunch bar. It's kind of rare.
Like Nestle Crunch or Crunchy?
No, Crunchy sucks. Nestle Crunch.
Oh,
the blue
yeah,
wrapper.
yeah.
I think Crunchy. There's a couple that are going to get. I'll give you here. Now they're doing the 5 best.
Crunchy's a controversial, like a very crunchy Big Turk, and I've seen people mentioning the Big Turk. Those are ones that you either love them or you hate them.
Yeah. Here, I see reading Dan Jets fan. He says nobody gives Eat More. I like Eat More. That's a rare one. You don't get a lot of those.
Eat More's right there with Crunchy and the Big Turk.
Oh, you don't
a
like
highly controversial bar.
Oh,
listen, I've had them before, but
Eat More is controversial?
Well, I think there's some people that would have it like way, way, way down.
Yeah.
Like most of these ones we've talked about, there's not a lot of debate on them, I don't think. I think you would get some debate from some people on Eat More. But anyways, back to your list.
Oh, see, it's
Rockets.
funny. I said Crunch, not to be confused with Crispy Crunch, which I don't like either. Crispy Crunch.
Oh.
But I like Crunch. Crunchy, I don't like.
Yeah,
Okay.
you got to specify it. It's the Nestle Crunch bar. And those are good.
Good. A little rare. I don't know if it comes in like any of the popular boxes. 3, Mars. I'm with you, Mars. Very good. This one has ranked up my power poll the recent years. Used to hate it as a kid, but I really like it. Kit Kat. I don't know if it's the wafer, that it's small and you get 2 of them. You can break it in half.
Yeah.
I really like Kit Kat, and I used to not be Kit Kat at all. Number 1, this was no doubt about it. Coffee Crisp. Delicious.
Whoa, Coffee Crisp. I considered Coffee Crisp. As a kid, did not like Coffee Crisp very much. Kind of came around to it. Don't drink coffee, but it's there. And I believe it's a Nielsen bar. So I think you've got Coffee Crisp from that family. Coffee Crisp, Arrow, Crispy Crunch. There might be another one that was Nielsen. And one thing
Smarties.
we never see at Halloween, but it is still one of my favorites. I actually had one, I think, yesterday. The Mr. Big. but I don't really remember ever seeing Mr. Big, like small Mr. Bigs given out for Halloween. If I did, I was excited, but it would be in the mix for my top 5. It just doesn't usually end up on it. I knew this was just going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Look at me and T. Will agreeing on something. What a beautiful moment.
Here.
Peanut Butter Cup is the undisputed champ. So with you. Eric mentioning, great to see you last night too, Eric. Score for me. Big fan of Score, particularly in like blizzards or flurries or ice cream or whatever, but I'll still hit one. But to me, and I see Eric agreeing, like Reese is top of the power pole right there. For Tanny, where's the O. Henry? O. Henry, listen, I really do like the O. Henry. I'm a big fan of the peanut butter O. Henry. But it just didn't quite, like, if it was between that or the Mars, I think I'm still going Mars.
I'll say I don't like O. Henry. That's one that I'll probably eat them. Too chewy. I don't like chunks of peanut in there, so I never liked O. Henry.
Leslie says, Huss, we bought a box that has small Mr. Bigs plus Caramilk and a couple of other ones. You know what? There's a lot of love for the O. Henry. And Schickster even dropping the famous line from their all-time commercial. It's that big chunk of fudge. And speaking of great commercials for chocolate bars, Ishaboy Bruce has dropped the Wonder Bar in the chat. And Wonder Bar, if you've never seen the famous, and I think this might even be from the 80s, the Wonder Bar commercial, there is an all-timer of just guys. I think it's like old, they're supposed to be like, warriors back in like the medieval times, just yelling, Wonder Bar! It's hilarious. An all-timer. I'm sure it's up on YouTube. Waiters has Coffee Crisp equals McDavid. Well, that's your number one. So, you were liking that as well. We could do 2 hours on this. I don't think there's any doubt. What's the worst thing going in? Extra Boy Bruce, candy corn. I'm with you. You remember those those sort of pseudo caramel things that came in the black and orange wrappers? Those were the worst. They never got eaten. I did always like the addition. You'd get a chocolate bar and maybe they toss a few of those craft caramels in. I don't think I ever had a craft caramel anywhere else other than Halloween. And then there was some dentist on our street every year that would give out toothbrushes and stuff. And I wasn't one to go with vengeance on people, but let's just say that we weren't too fired up about the toothbrush as opposed to the candy. But probably a pretty smart move on the dentist's part, I will say that.
Yeah, gum. I don't mind getting odd thing. Raisins. Didn't Big Justice give raisins like only one boom? You got that on the Jimmy Fallon show? I don't mind raisins. We didn't mention Skittles and Starburst. I like Starburst. I don't like when it's two of the same color. That's the worst. I also don't like the pink ones, but I'll eat them. Skittles, they're fine. I don't want to get too many of them, though. This is what I'm giving out. This is the box.
Toothbrush. What a psychopath. Exactly, Kevin Kowal.
I would want a toothbrush. I always forget one traveling. That's what I'm giving out. We got this box, so I pick out all the Coffee Crisps and leave the Smarties. At the end, Arrow's good too. I can live with Arrow. But Coffee Crisp and Kit Kat, they make this box.
This is a good time to ask you about a WST M. Remis approved deal. Is tomorrow the day to roll into like Shoppers or some of these stores and hit the unsold Halloween candy?
Probably. I would think. I think maybe even today, like they start putting them on sale if you do it last minute. We bought ours like 2 months ago at Costco. They had it on sale. It's been sitting on our table unopened, ready to go.
Credit to you for not opening it. That's the power move by the grocers. They put that stuff on sale 2 months before. You're like, oh great, we'll just get this. And then by the time the week of Halloween comes in, you're like, well, there's 8 left.
Yeah,
we have to get more.
We never opened it. It's been sitting on a table like in our kitchen, like ready to go. Never got it. We have a lot of other like chocolate bars, maybe from. I told you my kids don't eat candy, so I just eat theirs throughout the year. I'm pretty sure there's only Smarties left, so I'm gonna have to replenish that tonight when I go through and take out the dad tack.
I wonder It just seems so bizarre that your kid, I mean, Sadie's so young, but like Evan not really liking candy.
Doesn't like
stuff,
candy.
Like at some point there'll be like a culinary puberty that hits, if you will, where you move from not liking it to, wait a second, actually, I think I'm into this stuff. And then maybe getting really into it, if you know what I'm saying.
It's funny, like my son goes to birthday parties and like wouldn't, like he's 5 now, like isn't crazy about cake, like wouldn't get excited for all that. But my daughter, she's turning 2 tomorrow. And if she hears you say cookie, she's like, cookie, loves cookies. So very different.
Big birthday party weekend too. Wow. Well, listen, Halloween into the birthday. Geez, busy couple days at the Remis household. That we still will be doing a busy show tomorrow. We're gonna have maybe some Halloween aftermath. We're going to be getting ready for the Moose weekend with Daniel Fink. The loquacious and well-hydrated Ken Wiebe is going to join us. And who's coming on? We're going to talk a little CFL and NFL with a guest stream.
Yeah, Emery Hunt. He's at F-Ball Game Plan on X. He's on CBS Sports Network.
He's talking CFL all the time.
He's doing a lot of CFL. He does college and NFL too. So I wanted curious to hear his take on NFL, but we'll have to touch on the CFL playoffs. We did put out the poll during the segment with Jamie Nye or shortly after. Who do you think the Bombers are going to play? And everyone thought Saskatchewan. We had 109 votes. 63% of people responding said the Bombers will be playing Saskatchewan on November 9.
Will, as I said earlier, the worst I ever saw. My kids once got a choice between a tennis ball and an apple. I mean, that's outrageous. Turn the light off. Turn the light off if that's going to happen. Anyways, wherever you're spending your Halloween, enjoy it. If you're out trick-or-treating with the kids, have a great time. Always fun memories. And as they say, you'll be able to just crush candy, keep them out a little longer, and then, as Remis said, utilize the dad or mom tax and enjoy it as well. I'll be watching some hockey. I'll be watching this football game tonight. I'll be getting ready for tomorrow for the Jets in Columbus. We'll have the latest from the team after the morning skate. As I mentioned, Ken on the Jets, Fink on the Moose. We'll talk some NFL and CFL with Emery Hunt, and we will drop the marbles on November 1st. So have a happy Halloween, everyone. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Thanks to Billeck, Brando. Great chat that we had with Dylan Anhorn. What a beauty he is. And, of course, Jamie Nye, the sports guy, not the science guy. We'll see how his predictions age over the next couple weeks. But we will have more on the CFL playoffs tomorrow as well in the program. That's going to do it for us. Happy trick-or-treating, folks. Thanks for hanging out with us. And, again, thanks to Little Brown Jug, Boston Pizza, and most of all of you for joining us on what was such an awesome watch party last night for the Jets' big win over Detroit. Have a good one. We'll see you tomorrow at 1 right here on WST.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.